Chapter 1849. Wang Ling had never seen what a real emperor looked like. The East Great Emperor's domineering, dignified, and unyielding attitude in the face of the invading enemy was almost exactly what Wang Ling had in mind. He was high and lofty, and even when facing a group of ancient beings with royal bloodlines, he wasn't afraid at all. The vermilion bird flame in his eyes flickered, and a powerful primal chaos energy circulated around his body along with a mysterious force. This was the Emperor's primordial qi, which was actually the same type of substance as the primordial qi in Wang Ling's body, and usually only emperors had it. It was just that most primordial qi, including the emperor's, had already taken shape and had an upper limit. Wang Ling's primordial qi was heaven-defying, and had no upper limit at all. Wang Ling had never sensed this kind of power from any of the ancient beings, including the Skeleton Prince, the Lion Man, and Meng Liuli. Even Monk Golden Lamp and Tao ancestor Wang's direct disciple Peng Shiren didn't have this kind of power. It could only be said that great emperors were truly extraordinary and out of the ordinary. Who dares to act rashly, at this time, the great East Emperor muttered to himself. His whole body was shrouded by the vermilion bird's flames. This was an unintentional and automatic defensive ability. Any flying objects near the great East Emperor, including long-range spells and hidden weapons, would be burned by the vermilion bird's flames the moment they got close. Then, he stared at one of the few women in the queue in front of him and muttered, "I didn't expect you to come too. Jiaoyang, you and I are of the same origin, but now you're betraying me in the midst of the enemy. How ridiculous." Everyone was stunned. The Blazing Sun Goddess was someone the Western Great Emperor had spent a great deal of money to recruit. This was the first time anyone had heard that the Blazing Flame Saint Fairy was actually from the same source as the Eastern Great Emperor. Goddess Jiaoyang's expression was tranquil, and she didn't show the slightest bit of anger when she heard East Great Emperor's words. She still maintained her graceful and moving posture as she took off her hood and stepped forward. Her posture made the heroes around her look dim. There was no doubt that Goddess Jiaoyang was a strong contender for the position of East Great Emperor, and was the woman most likely to directly take his head. She and the Great East Sovereign came from the same source. Naturally, she was very clear about the weaknesses of the Great East Sovereign. Even a Great Emperor-level expert couldn't be completely invincible. They also had a fatal weakness, but most people didn't know about it. A fine bird chooses a good tree to nest in. The Celestial Emperor's words smack of moral coercion. I didn't grow up in the Eastern Divine region and wandered around. You and I have no other connection except for some dispensable bloodline. She laughed and stared at the Great East Emperor. As a great emperor, you let your people of the same origin wander outside without a home to return to. Have you ever thought about how many people have looked down on me? But now, you only know how to talk. Your father rebelled a long time ago. This is a serious crime. Out of benevolence, I only punished your father and exiled your clansmen. The East Great Emperor opened his mouth, his expression dejected. It was obvious that the words of the goddess Jiaoyang had poked at his sore spot. The past was unbearable to recall. It was all in the past. Even the East Great Emperor himself didn't expect that a moment of benevolence would actually ignite the flames of revenge. We have gathered here today. With so many people of the royal bloodline gathered here, Celestial Emperor, you should know that you have no chance of winning today. When the goddess Jiaoyang heard about the past, the expression on her face didn't change at all. She still maintained a calm posture as she looked at the charred corpse of Yan Sanyang on the ground. Her eyes were biting cold. The Celestial Emperor in the West gave you one last chance, but unfortunately, you didn't cherish it. Humph. How can the majesty of an emperor be challenged? The East Great Emperor's tone was indifferent. He couldn't help but laugh out loud. Since all of you have broken into my main hall today, I have no choice but to annihilate all of you. Boom. The next moment, everyone in the main hall tacitly moved at the same time. Powerful spiritual energy collided in the air, forming a high pressure that immediately shook the dome of the entire main hall. Do it. Someone shouted. The battle had already begun, so everyone had no scruples. Although some people knew that the goddess Jiao Yang had a high chance of winning, the battle for the head depended on each person's ability. If there was a chance to pick up the slack and be the first to get the head of the East Great Emperor, then they could also ascend to the throne. At the same time, because the goddess Jiao Yang was here, they had no fear when facing the East Great Emperor. She was the main attacker, and they only needed to interfere from the side. In their opinion, there were many ways to win. The East Great Emperor had ascended the throne for many years, and his emperor's aura had dried up. He had long entered his twilight years, and no one thought that the East Great Emperor could still be insufferably arrogant. Countless artifacts flew across the sky, illuminating the top of the imperial palace. All the attacks were concentrated in front, aiming at the East Great Emperor. At this moment, heaven and earth were silent. All kinds of chaotic aura intertwined, bringing with it a sense of deathly stillness. The white-robed general manager Yi Ren tried his best to protect the emperor, but he was pushed away by the goddess Jiao Yang's palm. Nine-tailed vermilion bird? Yi Ren was shocked. In that palm strike just now, he saw a nine-tailed vermilion bird rush out from the palm of the goddess Jiao Yang. His face turned pale with fright. If the East Great Emperor hadn't pushed him away from a distance with his palm force in time, he would have died if that palm strike had collided with him directly. He couldn't believe that the goddess Jiao Yang had cultivated the nine-tailed vermilion bird Dharma form. This was the highest realm of the vermilion bird technique. Even the East Great Emperor hadn't comprehended it, and now he was only at the level of an eight-tailed vermilion bird. That's not the nine-tailed vermilion bird. It's a fake nine-tailed vermilion bird. An old official of the East Great Emperor Palace was besieged by several people. He spat out blood, but he also clearly saw the scene just now. He was very sure that the nine-tailed vermilion bird was different, because the tail behind the vermilion bird was not the vermilion bird's plume, but 9 snake heads. Obviously, before coming here, the West Great Emperor had lent his power to the goddess Jiao Yang. She had originally cultivated the six-tailed vermilion bird, and now, with the power of the West Great Emperor, it was no wonder that she dared to directly lead the people to attack the East Great Emperor Palace. At this moment, the goddess Jiao Yang didn't hesitate and once again displayed the nine-tailed vermilion bird Dharma form. With an extremely strong aura, it swept across the entire area. When the Dharma form was displayed, it shocked the world. With an extremely strong aura, many people in the air swayed and fell to the ground. This pressure was too strong. They were too close to the goddess Jiao Yang, and they couldn't even stabilize their flying figures in the air, tarnishing the vermilion bird's bloodline. How dare you! An old official of the East Great Emperor Palace half knelt on the ground. He was shaken by this power until he bled from his 7 orifices. He was so angry that his whole body was trembling. This is the power that the West Great Emperor bestowed upon me, and power is just a tool. It's fine as long as I can win. The goddess Jiao Yang's face was still as calm as an ancient well. She stared fixedly at the East Great Emperor in front of her. When the nine-tailed vermilion bird was displayed, the East Great Emperor was the most intuitive to feel the impact and crushing feeling of the power. In the blink of an eye, he felt the chi and blood in his body churn, and even the vermilion bird fire light protecting his body lost its effect. But what Wang Ling found very strange was that even in the face of this desperate situation, the East Great Emperor still showed no fear. Could it be that the East Great Emperor still had a trick up his sleeve? Hiding in the East Great Emperor's body, Wang Ling was very puzzled. The situation should be similar to what he had deduced. After all, there was a relatively complete record of the battle in the East Great Emperor's diary. If the East Great Emperor had died here, he probably wouldn't have completed the diary. While Wang Ling was pondering this, the East Great Emperor suddenly laughed loudly at the goddess Jiao Yang in front of him. Jiao Yang, may I ask, are you asking a god to possess you? Not really, I'm just borrowing power. The goddess Jiao Yang shook her head, inexplicably confident. She stared at the East Great Emperor with a sinister look in her eyes. As long as I can kill you, even if the West Great Emperor wants my body, I won't complain. But this is the worst step. I want to kill you with my own hands. To everyone's surprise, the East Great Emperor actually laughed again when he heard this. Do you think you're the only one who can ask a god to possess you? Speaking up to this point, his heart stirred. Immediately after, a voice rang out in Wang Ling's mind. Great God! What are you waiting for? Quickly possess me. Wang Ling. Chapter 1850. Wang Ling realized that compared with the great emperors of the ancient times, he was still a little younger. At that moment, the innocence of a young man was thoroughly destroyed by the craftiness of the great emperor. He had never thought that he would be schemed against by East Great Emperor, let alone that the history of the diary of East Great Emperor would actually be one in which he had been schemed against. At first, Wang Ling had been worried that his rash actions would change the course of history, but now it seemed that East Great Emperor had even planned this out. Wang Ling found this extremely strange. He had used Dao number 16 to enter the ancient cultivation world of the ancient people in the diary of East Great Emperor. This was his exclusive secret technique, and could be said to be a seamless and heaven-defying method. But East Great Emperor had been able to directly peer into the future. It would have been very difficult for East Great Emperor to peer into the distant future with his own strength, so Wang Ling suspected that East Great Emperor must have done something before Wang Ling had possessed him, which was why he had predicted his arrival. Wang Ling was certainly uncomfortable with such a scheme, but in order not to change the course of history, he had to act on his behalf. After the war, he would definitely ask East Great Emperor for an explanation. Even an emperor couldn't rely on their own strength to peer into the future tens of thousands of years into the future. At that moment, East Great Emperor's body was officially under Wang Ling's control. If you looked closely, you would see that the expression in his eyes had clearly changed. Above the ruined imperial palace, a powerful aura was released from the Great Emperor's body. At this point, the invading elders of West Great Emperor's forces, including Goddess Jiao Yang, could clearly feel a chill on their backs. After East Great Emperor said, "Do you think you're the only one who can invite a god to possess you?" Everything changed. The sudden emergence of an inexplicably powerful force crushed everyone present, like a god descending to the mortal world. Everyone who had spoken wildly just now couldn't help stepping back as a huge sense of fear welled up in their hearts. It was hard to describe this feeling in words. It was an extremely stifling and suffocating feeling. This was Wang Ling's first time fighting so many ancient people with royal blood, especially this goddess Jiao Yang, who had been given some of West Great Emperor's power to condense the nine-headed vermilion bird. The other party's strength could already be considered to be at the pseudo-Tharch level. Previously, he had suppressed the East Great Tharch. If the East Great Tharch hadn't felt that the situation was dangerous, he probably wouldn't have invited a god to possess him. Great East Emperor, why are you bluffing? Someone like you wants to be possessed by a god? An elder from the Great Western Emperor's faction said. Whether it's true or not, you'll know once you try. The East Great Emperor revealed a contemptuous smile. This wasn't Wang Ling replying, but East Great Emperor snatching the microphone while Wang Ling was controlling his body. Wang Ling's heart was burning with rage at this kind of behavior, but he had no choice but to act now. Because according to the course of history, all the invaders who broke into the palace in the diary of the Great East Emperor had a tragic ending. But it was obvious that the Great East Emperor had omitted some things in the diary. For example, when it came to inviting a god to possess him, he had only used a few strokes to play it down without mentioning a single word. Even Wang Ling couldn't have imagined that the god he had invited would be himself. It's useless no matter what you do. With me, the nine-headed vermilion bird, here, you will definitely die today. Goddess Jiaoyang spoke at that moment, her calm expression still revealing her confidence. Although she had noticed that East Great Emperor was completely different from just now, she had thought that he was bluffing. How could he really invite a god to possess him? And in such a short period of time, what kind of god would possess someone else's body so casually? Ha ha ha, today, we are about to witness history. A new empress has ascended the throne. And it's an empress. The elder from the Great Western Emperor's faction who had been clamoring earlier echoed and laughed again. Boom! Without another word, Wang Ling straightaway made a move with a powerful aura as he grabbed the elder as a warning to the rest. This palm strike was like an inescapable net that came from afar and directly caused the ground to quake. Since that's the case, this emperor will take you down first. At this critical moment, Great East Emperor and Wang Ling once again put on a two-man show. Wang Ling was in charge of attacking while Great East Emperor was in charge of speaking. Although the two of them didn't communicate much, there was no doubt that they had a clear division of labor at this moment. With me here, don't even think about succeeding, Goddess Jiaoyang said softly. A golden light flashed in her eyes, and a blazing light burst forth from her body. She was well aware that Great East Emperor wanted to kill a chicken to warn the monkeys and eliminate the clamoring person. However, if she allowed the East Great Emperor to have his way in front of her, she would lose all her face. In an instant, the nine-headed vermilion bird Dharma form released a black light in the air. The laws of darkness and light intertwined and condensed into hemp ropes that finally weaved into a dark vermilion bird cage that covered all the elders of Great West Emperor's faction. Wang Ling looked at this scene indifferently, his expression as calm as an ancient well. He didn't care about Goddess Jiaoyang's method at all, and he continued to attack. When his palm approached the dark vermilion bird cage, to Goddess Jiaoyang's surprise, his palm completely covered it. At this moment, the world was silent. Goddess Jiaoyang had never thought that this Great East Emperor would actually dare to directly grab the dark vermilion bird cage that she had woven with his bare hands. For a moment, there was an infinite silence in the air. A moment later, powerful spirit power surged out of Wang Ling's palm, and the supreme vermilion bird Dharma form emerged behind Great East Emperor. Vermilion bird fire, which was infinitely bright, directly burned the dark vermilion bird cage to ashes. At the same time, a powerful ripple surged out, and the clamoring elder was burned to ashes on the spot, leaving nothing behind. How is this possible? Goddess Jiaoyang's beautiful face turned pale. She had never expected Great East Emperor's vermilion bird Dharma form to actually become stronger. It was clearly an 8-tailed vermilion bird earlier. It had one fewer feather than her. At this moment, everyone was shocked. No one had expected that the vermilion bird Dharma form in the sky now actually had 81 feathers on its tail. It was like a peacock, and it even had a tail. This is no longer a vermilion bird. It's the supreme light Mahamayuri. The ultimate form above the 9-tailed vermilion bird. Yi Ren exclaimed. He and the elders of Great East Emperor, who were bathed in blood as they fought below, were horrified. Everyone's mouths were open so wide that a goose egg could be stuffed inside. In fact, even Wang Ling hadn't expected his own Dharma form spirit, which was the spirit of the universe, to actually possess someone else's Dharma form and directly evolve it into its ultimate form. The supreme light Mahamayuri soared through the sky, and the supreme nomological power of light unleashed infinite destruction in the sky above the Eastern Territory. At that moment, all kinds of magic artifacts on Great West Emperor's side were accurately shattered. Wang Ling was well aware that at this point, these invaders had no chance of survival. He stopped attacking, and instead returned control of his body to Great East Emperor. Once this battle was over, he would remove the fusion with the spirit of the universe. At the same time, the elders who had been shouting to seize the throne turned extremely pale. In a short period of time, Mahamayuri's light shone on them and then turned them into dried corpses before they turned to ashes. This was a shocking change that happened in the blink of an eye. At that moment, all the elders on Great East Emperor's side were moved, and all the tribes and people in the imperial territory shouted loudly. Eternal East Emperor, the vast Eastern Territory was now a boiling cauldron of voices, and everyone was chanting the 4 words, Eternal East Emperor. The appearance of the Supreme Light Mahamayuri gave everyone a great boost of morale. And to the invaders, this was definitely a disaster. This kind of Dharma idol was really too terrifying. In order to protect the tribes and people of the Eastern Territory, Great East Emperor was extremely decisive in his actions after being blessed with the power of God possession. Boom! In the next moment, he displayed Mahamayuri's nomological power of light again. Like a great sun, it released countless beams of light, and the cry of a phoenix rose between heaven and earth to clear the way for these beams of punishing light. Under the illumination of the light, dozens more people were directly killed by Great East Emperor's Mahamayuri Dharma form. Then, he controlled Mahamayuri to tear off all the snake tails on the back of Goddess Jiao Yang's 9-headed vermilion bird Dharma form. Goddess Jiao Yang's face turned pale when her Dharma form was damaged. The pain of her body being torn apart was immediately transmitted, and she spat out a large mouthful of blood. Chapter 1851. The huge supreme light Mahamayuri soared through the sky, all the feathers on his back spread out like a divine sun, shining in all directions, dispelling the darkness and bringing infinite light. When these rays of light pierced through the layers of clouds and haze and shone on the ground, the invisible pressure made the few survivors tremble. The East Great Emperor did not kill them all, but left a few of the weakest alive. He needed someone to witness this history, to warn all those who coveted the throne of the Eastern region. At the same time, the East Great Emperor didn't expect that the effect of this god possession would be so good. He didn't know what kind of god he had invited to directly upgrade his 8-tailed vermilion bird to Mahamayuri. Such strength was obviously above the emperor level. The 4 great emperors of the East, West, North and South could only be regarded as juniors in the face of such strength. Why is it like this? I didn't expect the East Great Emperor to still have this hidden card. Mahamayuri is so terrifying. The few surviving elders of the Western region turned pale. Although they did not die, they suffered internal injuries and their cultivation regressed by hundreds of years. Even if they had the blood of the royal family, this was a sign of great damage, which meant that they had lost the qualification to compete for the throne. For the East Great Emperor, this was definitely a glorious battle because the appearance of Mahamayuri not only deterred the foreign enemies, but also consolidated the hearts of the people, proving that the fate of the Eastern region's emperor was immortal. At the same time, the invaders from the Western region, including the proud sun goddess, did not expect that the East Great Emperor, who had always been benevolent, could also have a decisive side. At this time, the proud sun goddess took a few golden pills and attacked the East Great Emperor again, not giving up resistance. That was the peerless secret medicine given to her by the West Great Emperor, which could ignore pain for a short period of time, recover from injuries, and stimulate the potential of the body. At this moment, the damaged tail of the vermilion bird Dharma power form was rapidly recovering under the effects of the secret medicine. The severed snake heads grew back wildly, and there were still 9 of them. However, the shape of the heads had changed, becoming thicker than before. In the end, these snake heads grew dragon horns, and dragon roars rose and fell, hissing in the sky. Under the blessing of the secret medicine, the proud sun goddess directly entered a berserk state, and actually went berserk together with the vermilion bird. The romance of the dragon and snake. This is the 9 dragons vermilion bird. In the distance, someone cried out in alarm. Seeing the goddess transformation, everyone revealed an expression of disbelief. At the same time, goddess Jiao Yang was wantonly roaring, her ear-piercing cries accompanied by the roars of a dragon. Her petite and curvaceous body seemed somewhat out of place. It could be seen that goddess Jiao Yang was in great pain. Because of the secret medicine, her latent potential had been forced out. Although her battle prowess had been greatly enhanced, the powerful medicinal energy in her body was also a test of her body's endurance. She had to fight while enduring the pain of her body being torn apart. The cultivators of the eastern and western regions were shocked. A few secret medicines could actually cause the Dharma idol to undergo changes in the romance of the dragon and snake. This secret medicine definitely contained the blood of an ancient dragon. Some people had seen the great Western Emperor use secret medicine to evolve his Dharma idol, but it wasn't as painful as the goddess Jiao Yang. Since then, the great Western Emperor's secret medicine containing dragon blood had become a legend that had been circulating outside. Many people couldn't believe that this was actually true. Only the power of dragon blood could make the Hydra resonate like this. Compared to before, goddess Jiao Yang's aura had risen a lot in such a short period of time. The great Eastern Emperor frowned. At this moment, with the Mahamayuri Dharma idol, he was no longer afraid of anything. Out of kinship, he saw that goddess Jiao Yang was trying hard to adapt to the impact of the secret medicine, so he didn't immediately make a move. Instead, he deliberately waited for a while. Back then, when the Great Eastern Emperor had punished Goddess Jiao Yang's father for attempting to rebel, he had no choice but to do so. He would never have thought that in the following days, Goddess Jiao Yang would be targeted by the Great Western Emperor and become a tool for revenge. At this moment, his heart was filled with emotion, but the arrow was already knocked on the bowstring and had to be released. After waiting for a while, Goddess Jiao Yang had clearly adapted to the pain. Her originally ferocious face returned to its most beautiful appearance. She used to be like the morning sun, but now her body was emitting embers from the setting sun. Her snow-white and translucent body was covered with traces of the secret medicine's impact on her blood vessels, forming a faint golden pattern that was like a print along her long white neck all the way down to her ankles. At this moment, Goddess Jiao Yang's body carried a strong aura of death, which was accompanied by the sound of dragons roaring all around her. Almost in the blink of an eye, her figure moved. She was as fast as a beautiful and delicate dragon. She directly appeared in front of the East Great Emperor and whipped her leg at his head. Chi! The Great Eastern Emperor reacted quickly and directly raised his left arm to grab Goddess Jiao Yang's snow-white ankle in his hand. The woman in front of him clearly had a strong mix of anger and hatred in her eyes. Her expression was calm, even when her ankle was grabbed. In the blink of an eye, Goddess Jiao Yang's beautiful eyes burst into flames. She directly damaged her body and burned her ankle. That snow-white beautiful foot instantly turned into a cloud of flying ash in the Great Eastern Emperor's palm. Then, her broken foot began to regenerate, returning to its original appearance at a speed visible to the naked eye. Dragon energy protection: even if the head is broken, it can still be restored. The old ministers of the Great Eastern Territory were all frightened. They didn't expect the battle to develop to this point. In the next moment, Goddess Jiao Yang attacked again. The 9 vermilion birds behind her spat out flames. Under the cover of the scorching and dazzling fire mist, the 9 dragons at the end extended their long bodies and used their strongest power to sweep away thousands of enemies. They actually formed a body array with their bodies and drilled into the ground of the imperial palace, deeply rooting themselves in it. This was extracting the emperor's fate under the Great Eastern Territory. Even the underground spirit veins were absorbed by the 9 dragons array, becoming a constant source of nutrients for Goddess Jiao Yang. Then, Goddess Jiao Yang's aura became significantly stronger. Everyone turned pale with shock. Just what kind of terrifying power was this? The people from the Eastern and Western territories were all dumbfounded. There was no doubt that this kind of continuous absorption of the underground spirit veins and the empire's fate was a kind of self-destructive behavior. Once the body couldn't withstand such pressure, there was the danger of directly exploding. And the Great Eastern Emperor suddenly understood what Goddess Jiao Yang was doing at this time. He sighed. It turned out that from the beginning, Goddess Jiao Yang had no intention of surviving. This was the purpose of directly perishing together with him. Originally, the Great Eastern Emperor still had a trace of benevolence and didn't want to kill Goddess Jiao Yang. But now, for the sake of his people, he had to do it. He wanted to use the Supreme Light Mahamayuri to eat these 9 dragons like earthworms. Chapter 1852. The 9 dragons' vermilion birds' 9 huge dragon heads were deeply rooted in the ground, like pillars from the sky, wantonly plundering the empire's luck and underground spirit veins. Goddess Jiao Yang absorbed a steady stream of energy, causing the energy density of her petite body to increase. Everyone present felt a strong sense of danger. There was no doubt that this was a method of mutual destruction. This woman is crazy. The surviving members of the royal family from the western regions were all stunned. However, at this time, they had no strength to escape because their bodies were injured. Even if they escaped now, they wouldn't be able to escape far. Once the body of Goddess Jiao Yang exploded, the impact would cover the entire eastern regions of the universe. Not only the land under their feet, but all the planets within this range would be destroyed as well. The East Emperor's expression gradually became indifferent under the pressure of Goddess Jiao Yang. He didn't want to see the situation of fighting against his own kind. However, as an emperor, he had to carry out what he should do as an emperor. He was not afraid at all. With the protection of the Supreme Light Peacock Wisdom King, he had enough confidence to deal with the current situation. At this moment, the East Emperor had the majesty of a great emperor. He ignored the pressure of the 9 dragons and stood proudly in the sky. His every move was in harmony with heaven and earth. Buzz! In an instant, intense light surged from his body. It was boundless light that emanated from his body, from the Paragon Mahamayaka Dharma idol. It was endless. It's the great emperor's mystic power. Everyone present revealed a look of surprise. The East Emperor was using this power to compete with goddess Jiao Yang for the empire's luck and the power of the spirit veins under his feet. Because of his identity as a great emperor, using the mystic power of the great emperor didn't require the complicated operation of goddess Jiao Yang. As the ruler of the eastern regions, as long as he stood there, he could cause an impact and form a long-range competition. In modern terms, goddess Jiao Yang was like a network cable, while the East Emperor was connected to Wi-Fi. The two were competing for network speed. No one thought that the speed of the East Emperor's long-range competition was so amazing. He stood proudly in the sky and snatched food from the dragon's mouth, as if he was commanding the entire world. Chi 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 chi, accompanied by the sound of countless feathers falling, the Supreme Light Peacock Wisdom King launched a counterattack at the same time. While helping the East Emperor compete, it inserted the feathers into the spine of the 9 dragons. Beneath the ground, the 9 dragons let out pained cries, causing a huge earthquake on the spot. The great East Emperor seized the opportunity and formed a fist seal. Stepping on light, he aimed a punch at the goddess Jiao Yang. A blazing radiance burst forth from his fist, piercing through the heavens and smashing into goddess Jiao Yang's body, instantly sending her flying. He didn't hold back at all, and the weight of his fist was unimaginably heavy. Goddess Jiao Yang didn't expect that the East Great Emperor would still be able to divert his attention to attack her even though he was trying so hard to compete with her for the Empire's luck and spirit veins. Everyone was shocked. Everyone felt that they had underestimated the power of the radiant Supreme King Mahamayuri. The people from the eastern and western regions had forgotten about each other at this moment. They were all discussing the battle below, and all of them were dumbfounded. This Dharma form is too heaven-defying. It can suppress the 9 dragons' vermilion bird. Even if goddess Jiao Yang swallowed the West deity's secret medicine to upgrade it, it would still be useless. This light Supreme King Mahamayuri can be said to be invincible. It's really strange. Why did the East Great Emperor's Dharma form suddenly upgrade, and he didn't even take the secret medicine? Could he have really been possessed by a god? Where did this god come from? Above the Great Emperor is Tao Ancestor Wang, but how could the venerable Tao Ancestor Wang make a move so easily? But with this light Supreme King Mahamayuri, the East Great Emperor might become Tao Ancestor Wang's successor. The old officials and members of the royal family of the 2 regions were talking below at this moment, forgetting their previous hostility. On the one hand, they were attracted by the battle in the sky, and on the other hand, they couldn't fight anymore. In the face of this kind of battle, the rest of the fight was already completely meaningless. Given the East Great Emperor's current abilities, he could destroy them with a snap of his fingers. The radiant fist shook the goddess Jiao Yang out of the sky, and the East Great Emperor seized the opportunity to immediately manipulate the light Supreme King Mahamayuri to launch a counterattack. In just a few seconds, the 9 dragons had swallowed up the Empire's luck and the power of the spirit veins. Not only that, even the energy of the 9 dragons had been plundered by light Supreme King Mahamayuri. Using East Great Emperor's body to watch the battle, Wang Ling saw from a distance that the 9-headed dragon that had taken root in the ground began to shrink rapidly, as if it were riding on an earthworm in a short period of time. The Supreme Light Peacock Wisdom King Dharma form that he had strengthened for the East Great the Arch was simply too powerful. This was simply a cheat. There was no need for the East Great Emperor to do anything himself. He had already cleaned up the entire battle in front of him. The 9 dragons' vermilion bird were instantly devoured. Such an ending was hard to believe. She had clearly used the power that the Great Western Emperor had bestowed upon her, but she was still defeated. Her pure white body was dripping with blood, like a white flower oozing with fresh blood. Buzz! The Great East Emperor slowly walked to the front of the goddess Jiao Yang. Without any hesitation, he raised his hand, and the palm of his hand shone with boundless radiance, gushing towards the goddess Jiao Yang. Under everyone's gazes, goddess Jiao Yang finally disappeared, melting into the boundless light without leaving a trace. It's all over. East Great Emperor sighed in his heart and thanked Wang Ling at the same time. Thank you for your help, great god. Are you sure? Wang Ling replied succinctly. This battle was a battle to establish a nation. The Great West Emperor has always been cautious. Now that he knows that my Dharma form has been promoted to the Supreme Light Peacock Wisdom King, he won't easily make a move against my eastern territory. The Great East Emperor slowly said to Wang Ling, this battle has won at least 2,000 years of peace for the people of my eastern territory. At least for the duration of my term, the other forces won't dare to make a move against my eastern territory again. After saying that, he flicked his sleeve and looked at the white-robed general manager. Yi Ren, I'll leave the rest to you. Send away all the invaders. From now on, they're not allowed to take even half a step into my eastern territory. Yes. Yi Ren bowed. Before he left, the Great East Emperor's fingertips pulsed with light and healed the injuries of all the old officials of the Eastern Territory who had participated in the battle at the speed of light. After doing all this, he stepped into the back garden of the Imperial Palace. At this point, Wang Ling saw what the Imperial Garden of the Eastern Territory Imperial Palace looked like. It used to be a large field of spirit herbs, but many of them had been destroyed during the battle, which made the Great East Emperor secretly sigh in his heart. But Wang Ling didn't care for any of these spirit herbs. Any one of the ones in his king's treasure pants was more outstanding than these. The purpose of the Great East Emperor coming to the Imperial Garden wasn't to show Wang Ling the ruins, but to directly enter the secret passage that led to the underground palace. It was the location of the East Emperor's underground depository of scriptures. According to the records in the Great East Emperor's diary. After the battle, the Great East Emperor had spent 6 hours alone in the depository of scriptures. After entering the underground depository of scriptures, the Great East Emperor sat on a futon and sighed. I know that Great God must have a lot of questions for me, so I deliberately left some time for you to ask them. Chapter 1853. About an hour ago in the real world. On the other side, after notifying everyone, Lotus Sun immediately took Yu Yuqing to grenade-throwing senior immortals Wenxian Garden, where they had chosen to gather. They arrived late, and by the time they got there, the 9 people they had notified were already sitting neatly in the villa, chatting. Little Silver, dressed in a black suit, was serving tea on the side like a steward. He was even wearing leather shoes, and was no longer barefoot. It seemed that grenade-throwing senior immortal had taught him well during this period of time. Yu Yuqing didn't know most of the people here, and was even dumbfounded when she saw them. But there was one person she couldn't possibly not know. You're that Audra? Yu Yuqing was utterly astonished. She hadn't expected to see him here. When she had heard Lotus Sun's call earlier, she had thought it was someone with the same name, and hadn't expected the person to actually be Audra himself, the man who had knocked down a 5th-class demon king 7 years ago. It's me. Audra smiled amiably as usual. He shook hands with Yu Yuqing of his own accord without putting on any airs. On their way here, Lotus Sun had told Audra about Yu Yuqing, including how she had deduced Wang Ling's extraordinary ability based on her own abilities. It was necessary to let everyone know about Yu Yuqing in advance. It wasn't that they had to be wary of her. They were childhood sweethearts, so how could they have any bad intentions? After a simple handshake, Audra said, I've also heard of Daoist Yu's reputation. In my department, many of my subordinates have gone to Wind Thunder Manor to ask for their fortune. That's right, someone from the general administration of 100 schools did come. Yu Yuqing then smiled. But how did Director Zhua get to know student Lotus Sun? She's my junior sister. I'm also from number 60 high. I see. Yu Yuqing nodded in sudden realization. Do you need me to introduce the others to Daoist Yu? No need, Director Zhua. Student Lotus Sun already introduced them to me on the way here. I'm not face blind, and I have a good memory. I can match all the seniors' faces, don't worry. Very well, then let's get down to business. Audra nodded in satisfaction, then turned to Golden Lamp Monk. Monk Jean Deng unhurriedly took out a book of quotations from the Master of the Wind and Thunder Heights. Lotus Sun's eyes went wide. How did Senior Golden Lamp get it? Monk Gold Lamp said solemnly. Before I came here, I went to the Wind Thunder Manor in person and retrieved the quotations of the Master of the Wind Thunder Manor, which is suspected to be a record of mysterious runes. Yu Yuqing was also stunned. So the Manor Lord gave it to you just like that? Monk Jean Deng nodded. Villa Master, you've heard of my name. I only said that I passed by this place while cultivating and could consecrate an item for you for free. I didn't expect the Villa Master to give me this quote without hesitation. However, the formal light consecration takes time. Therefore, the Wind Thunder Manor's Manor Lord has allowed this penniless monk to bring the sayings back first. What if the Manor Lord doesn't have this book of quotations? That's impossible. Tyrant smiled, because I'm bringing little friend Qin Zong along. Xiang Yi and Zhang Ziden will be accompanying them as well. Lotus Sun was shocked. So if we can't borrow it, Senior wants Senior Xiang Yi and Senior Zhang to steal it, that's not right. Zhang Ziden crossed his arms and snorted proudly. We're all cultured people. It's not like we won't return this book of quotations. At most, it's a loan. Lotus Sun and Yu Yuqing, although it still felt a little weird, at least the seniors working together could be considered efficient. Lotus Sun remembered that Xiang Yi and Zhang Ziden had previously made a private agreement to compete legally and in compliance with the rules to see who was the strongest lockpicker. Originally, the two of them had agreed to look for residents in their designated areas who could not enter their homes and needed a locksmith. They would provide free lockpicking services, and the one who helped the most people within the same amount of time would be awarded the title of the strongest lockpicking king. Unfortunately, due to time constraints, the competition between the two had yet to be completed. Lotus Sun didn't know what the meaning of winning this title was, but to be honest, sometimes a man's happiness was just that simple. Just as Lotus Sun was in a daze, a familiar voice reached her ears. The video that Daoist you sent earlier did indeed have faint mysterious text on it. We've also compared it with this book of quotations. The handwriting is almost the same. Gu Xuanji rubbed the space between his eyebrows. But at the moment, we can't be sure that this mysterious text was written by the Lord of Wind Thunder Villa himself. Why do you think so? Lotus Sun asked. Because the book used to record the Lord of Wind Thunder Villa's quotations is an antique. It's very thick, like a dictionary. The overall material of the quotation is also very special. Even after 10,000 years, the words on it will still be clearly visible, and the paper will be as clean as new without the slightest wrinkle. Gu Xuanji's lips curved as he said, so we now suspect that the Lord of Wind Thunder Villa used this book of quotations a second time. The first half recorded the mysterious text, while the second half recorded the quotation written by the Lord of Wind Thunder Villa himself. Then, seniors, have you found a way to crack the quotation? Yu Yuqing asked as she sat down. She took a sip of the tea that Little Silver had poured for her, and felt that the tea was rich and refreshing, which instantly lifted her spirits. This was the best tea in the world, almost on par with the tea leaves at Lotus Sun's house. But given Audju's current status, Yu Yuqing didn't think it strange that he could produce such tea leaves. She had always thought that Wenxian Garden Villa was Audju's home, but if she had known that it was grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's home, she might have been even more astonished by Lotus Sun's connections. Earlier, we took turns to examine it. This mysterious text is indeed very mystical. It's not something an ordinary person can decipher. Li Xian said. He exchanged glances with the others, but in the end, he did not reveal the matter of the Ancient One in front of Yu Yuqing. Lu Qingyi held Wang Zhen's arm and said, so, the most likely way to succeed right now is to try it out. I can only let Senior Golden Lamp try. Speaking up to this point, Lotus Sun also remembered that Monk Golden Lamp had the swastika talisman, and was also protected by the Buddha fire of the past, present and future. Even if the swastika talisman was damaged by deciphering the mysterious text, it could be repaired by the Buddha fire. It was just that this test also worried monk Golden Lamp. After all, from what Lotus Sun had said earlier, Wang Ling didn't want anyone to get involved in this matter. So the monk was still conflicted. Of course, the most important thing was these mysterious texts. Monk Golden Lamp never thought that after living for so many lifetimes, there would actually be texts that he had never seen before. He was worried that if he went too deep after using the swastika talisman, he might directly enter the preset scene of the writing of the mysterious text and form a soul interaction. If he went too deep, he might be trapped in this world constructed by the mysterious text and never be able to get out. Chapter 1854. Golden Lamp Monk's concerns weren't unreasonable. After all, even Wang Ling had issued a warning that he didn't want anyone else to get involved. But in the end, the people who understood the immemorial ones the best were the immemorial ones. Wang Ling was invincible in the universe, but it was still very difficult to sort out some of the historical secrets and the complexity of the immemorial ones in a short time. The immemorial ones were like a big, intricate problem. Even if there were thousands of ways to solve it, there was often only one path to the truth. "Let this poor monk see what's inside," Golden Lamp Monk said in a steady voice. This was a mysterious character of the immemorial ones he had never seen before, and it might be risky to peek at it. Perhaps sensing that his direct test might cause damage to his eyeballs, he directly wrapped 2 balls of Buddha fire around the swastikas and used his power of sight to penetrate it. No one knew what would happen after Golden Lamp Monk's test. Everyone stared unblinkingly at the monk. Li Xian, Zhang Ziden, Qin Zong and Xiang Yi sat in a circle around Golden Lamp Monk. They were the 4 strongest people here, and they formed a human flesh spirit array to protect the monk. Will it be dangerous? The atmosphere was far more tense than Lotus Sun had imagined, and in the end, even her breathing had clearly become rapid. I'll do the divination. Yu Yuqing was also very nervous. She hurriedly took out the little turtle shell, closed her eyes, and entered a meditative state. When the ancient coin inside the turtle shell made a crisp sound, it fell out of the crack at the bottom of the turtle shell. Then, it stood steadily on the floor. It's an unknown divination, and the danger is unknown. Yu Yuqing's face was immediately filled with astonishment. She had never encountered an ancient coin standing upright on the floor after it fell out of the turtle shell. The probability of this happening was minuscule. That was to say, there was no way she could predict anything about Golden Lamp Monk. How could this be? Yu Yuqing frowned slightly, lost in thought. To rule out the possibility of a coincidence, she stuffed the ancient coin back into the turtle shell, and once again entered an ethereal and calm state as she tried to do the divination. Ding ding, the second time, the ancient coin fell from the small turtle shell. After swaying a few times, it stood upright on the floor. It's standing up again. Lotus Sun also gazed at the ancient coin, which was like a straight man made of steel, lost in thought. The first time was a coincidence, but both times, it was standing on the floor. The probability was too low. Lotus Sun couldn't help sweating on her forehead. The water here was too deep. Perhaps they really wouldn't be able to grasp it with just the few of them. She had never seen such a divination before. Even Yu Yuqing did not expect it to happen twice in a row. Then again, what kind of divination was the scariest? Yu Yuqing would have been fine if it was those ominous signs. Therefore, it was always the divinatory signs that were full of the unknown that were the scariest. Buzz. At the same time, in the villa of Wenxian Garden, with monk Jin Dang as the center, a powerful fluctuation came out of the monk's body, setting off a powerful spiritual wave. At the same time, the monk's swastika was bleeding, and tears of blood kept flowing from the corner of his eyes. It was clear that in the process of infiltrating the mysterious text, the swastika was already in a state of high stress, and it was already difficult for it to withstand. Ajua, Gu Xuanji, Wang Zhen and Lu Qingyi reacted quickly, and the remaining 4 immediately surrounded Lotus Sun and Yu Yuqing to form another human formation to protect them first. Little Silver, on the other hand, held a kitchen knife and looked like he was ready to offer his blood at any moment. Like Loopy Toad, he was already a divine beast. Coupled with the special healing ability of the Silver Wildebeest clan, Little Silver's blood was almost a natural panacea for healing. This fluctuation of spirit power was so intense that everyone thought that grenade-throwing Senior Immortal's villa was about to explode. At that moment, the veins on Monk Jin Dang's temples bulged. He put his palms together, and with an angry shout, he actually forcibly suppressed this fluctuation of spirit power. Lotus Sun, did you suppress it? Ah, Jua, it looks like it's under control, but I still feel that something isn't right. The rest of them stepped forward to take a look, and saw that Monk Jin Dang and the 4 people guarding him, Zhang Ziden, Li Xian, Xiang Yi and Qin Zong, were all hanging their heads and closing their eyes, as if they were disconnected. Although they could feel their even breathing, no matter how much Ajwa yelled, they didn't respond at all. This isn't good. They might have fallen into the world of this mysterious text, Gu Xuanji shouted in a low voice, almost immediately voicing his thoughts. You can even experience this in an immersive way. After all, this is a mysterious text that even Senior Jin Dang has never seen before, so it's not surprising that it has this kind of power. Gu Xuanji frowned. In this state, it's very difficult to wake them up using normal methods. Furthermore, they've entered an unknown world. At the moment, we can't be sure if they've fallen into a state of soul transmigration. If they're in a soul transmigration state, if they're in danger in that world, they might also be seriously injured. On the other hand, if they don't act according to the script recorded in the mysterious text, they might change the current trajectory of the world. After the analysis, Lotus Sun immediately knew that they were in big trouble. She was extremely remorseful that she shouldn't have disobeyed Wang Ling and forcibly intervened in this matter. The scene was silent for about 10 seconds. Faced with the situation in front of them, the rest of them didn't know how to deal with it. Can't we wake them up? Should we try slapping them? Wang Jin didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In fact, he wasn't sure if he could do it this way, but it seemed that he couldn't think of any other way at the moment. Without another word, he stepped forward and directly chose to slap Zhang Ziden. Did Senior Zhang really offend Brother Wang Zhen? Lotus Sun asked weakly. Not really, it's just that I heard that he has a dark history of stealing people, so I'm a little upset, Wang Zhen answered truthfully. The rest of the people, there's no other way, we can only try it as a last resort. Wang Zhen was a bold master, but as soon as he slapped Zhang Ziden in the face, he instantly twitched as if he had been electrocuted. Wang Zhen. Watch out. Lu Qingyi was anxious when she saw this, and hurriedly rushed forward. Don't go, it's dangerous. Yu Yuqing was quick to react, and immediately pulled Lu Qingyi back. Sister Qingyi. Daoist you. Lotus Sun also reacted quickly, and immediately released Mysterious C's sword Qi in an attempt to make it resemble a long whip and pull Ajwa back. Shifu, it's dangerous. Ajwa knew that things weren't looking good, and hurriedly tried to save him. But in the end, he was still a step too late, and with his final heart-wrenching cry. Just like that, in the form of Calabash brothers saving Grandpa, the remaining 4 entered the world outlined by the mysterious text together with Zhang Ziden's body. Chapter 1855. In a daze, Lotus Sun woke up. Her consciousness was clear, and she could still remember what had just happened. That's right, in order to save someone, they had linked up with Zhang Zistiel's body like the Calabash brothers saving their grandpa. Then, in the blink of an eye, her body began to twitch as if she had been electrocuted, and a mysterious force pushed her soul out of her body and into a mysterious vortex. When she woke up, she found herself covered in bandages and lying in a place full of light. Boundless light shone in from the huge floor-to-ceiling windows and fell on the side of the bed. The vermilion gauze curtain, which was embroidered with the mark of the vermilion bird, fluttered in the wind. Lotus Sun immediately realized that she had entered an unknown territory. Just as Monk Jin Dang had said at the beginning, they had probably fallen into the world outlined by the mysterious text together. What should I do? Lotus Sun got up, and very quickly realized that this body wasn't hers. This was because she could clearly feel that her chest had become much heavier. This shouldn't be something that someone her age should be able to do. So even if she didn't look in the mirror, she clearly knew that she wasn't her real self right now. Only her soul was her own. Are you there? The strong sense of unfamiliarity made her feel a little uncomfortable. She tried to call out to Sun Yinger, but she didn't respond at all. Could it be that because this body didn't belong to her, the shadow also didn't belong to her? Was that why she couldn't resonate with Sun Yinger? Or perhaps Sun Yinger had also entered this world constructed by the mysterious text and was playing a certain role? For a moment, she didn't know what to do. Fortunately, she could feel that the resonance between her and Mysterious Sea was still there, and she was on standby. As long as she wanted to, Mysterious Sea could still be summoned to protect her at any time. But she didn't dare to act rashly now. If the world here is like what those seniors said, a world of the past outlined by the primordial ones, then everything I do here that goes against the course of history might change the future. Closing her eyes, Lotus Sun lay on the bed, calmed her thoughts, and analyzed the situation at hand. Her top priority was to know who her role in this world was. Since you're awake, stop pretending. The Emperor spared your life, but it doesn't mean that the rest of us have forgiven you. At this moment, a young and magnetic voice sounded out from the side. Yi Ren, the white-robed chief steward of the Great East Emperor, slowly walked out from the side door. His footsteps were very light, and his clothes were slightly messy. It was obvious that he had just finished dealing with some important matters, and then he came here looking travel-worn. Where is the Emperor? Lotus Sun asked. She was merely playing along with the conversation, mainly to find out her identity. Jiaoyang, you don't have the right to take the initiative to meet the Emperor, Yi Ren said solemnly. The Blazing Sun? So, this is her name? Moreover, judging from the current situation, Lotus Sun felt that this Blazing Sun must have made a mistake. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been beaten to this state. The most likely outcome was that Jiaoyang had fought with the Emperor mentioned by the white-robed general manager. Then, at the critical moment of life and death, the person called the Emperor had spared Jiaoyang's life. After waking up, she'd entered the body of Lady Jiaoyang. However, entering the body wasn't the key. The key question now was how she was going to return to the original real world. Sorry, I don't remember anything. Helpless, Lotus Sun could only feign ignorance. She couldn't pretend in this situation, and it would instead give people clues. Thus, amnesia was always a very effective excuse. Since it was amnesia, it wouldn't be too strange for her to behave differently from before. You've committed a heinous crime, and you want to use amnesia to cover it all up? Yi Ren laughed. He clasped his hands behind his back and stared at her. You should be able to move now, right? Get up and follow me to a place. The Emperor wants to see you later. Lotus Sun had no choice but to comply. After all, she couldn't do anything that would go against the course of history. At this moment, her body was wrapped in layers of bandages, and she looked like a walking mummy. Yi Ren threw a robe at her, and after putting it on, she looked even more indistinguishable from a ghost. This slightly startled Lotus Sunday. She looked woodenly at Yi Ren. Senior, what I've committed is a crime punishable by death. Hee, I can't believe I'm able to become your goddess Jiaoyang Senior. It seems that you really don't remember anything. A meaningful smile appeared in Yi Ren's eyes. In the past, you were so arrogant and would never be so polite to others. Jiaoyang, compared to the current you, I admire your wild and unruly self more. You still haven't answered my question, Lotus Sun said solemnly. That's right. Yi Ren nodded slightly and looked at her. Since you don't remember anything, I'll tell you. You colluded with the Great Western Emperor and led a group of Western regions royalty in an attempt to rebel. This debt is enough for you to die 10 million times over. As he spoke, Yi Ren led Lotus Sun through the long winding corridors of the palace. All the guards here had been withdrawn, and Lotus Sun saw that her surroundings were in a mess. There were broken walls and rubble everywhere, clearly traces of a recent battle. The style of the room just now was clearly quite modern, but now that they were on the periphery, it was actually in the style of an ancient palace. This made Lotus Sun even more amazed by this mysterious world. Since this mysterious text had come from the hands of the Ancient One, Lotus Sun deduced that she might be trapped in the world of the Ancient One. As he led Lotus Sun away, Yiren said, "At present, only I know that the Emperor chose to spare your life in the end. I hope that you won't make any more disobedient moves, otherwise not even Tao Ancestor Wang will be able to save you. You've also seen the Emperor's supreme light, Mahamayuri, that's an invincible existence, so in the eyes of others, I'm already dead? You were burned to ashes by Mahamayuri's light." This scene was seen by everyone in the eastern regions, otherwise it wouldn't be enough to appease the common people, Yiren said. After walking for about 10 minutes, the two finally arrived in front of a locked palace. This was a relatively well-preserved building in the Great Eastern Emperor's palace after the war. Lotus Sun thought that Yiren would directly open the door, but to her surprise, he didn't take out the key. Instead, he grabbed the palace's spirit lock and began to study it. In the end, he slowly took out an iron wire from his sleeve. Lotus Sun was stunned. The other party was clearly the Emperor's man, so why would he use an iron wire to open his own palace? In that instant, realization dawned on Lotus Sunday. She stared at Yiren's back and asked tentatively, may I ask if you're Senior Xiang Yi or Senior Zhang Zipei? As soon as she said this, Yiren's figure clearly froze. Then he turned his head back in shock. I'm Zhang Zipei, could it be that you're Miss Lotus Sun? Chapter 1856. After confirming their gazes, she had met the right person. Lotus Sun had never imagined that she would run into Zhang Zipei so soon. And most importantly, Zhang Zipei had disguised himself extremely well. If it weren't for his habit of casually taking out the wire, Lotus Sun probably wouldn't have been able to tell that this was Zhang Zipei himself. Lotus Sun concluded that the reason why Zhang Zipei could disguise himself so well was mainly because he was originally an eternal being. Since he was an eternal being, he should also have some understanding of this period of history. Of course, there was another possibility, which was that Zhang Zipei's memory synchronization with this body was better than hers. Lotus Sun felt that perhaps Goddess Jiaoyang really had lost her memory, which was why she hadn't received any memories of her. I didn't expect Miss Sun to have actually entered Goddess Jiaoyang's body. This time, even Zhang Zidi was horrified. Fortunately, he finally met someone he was familiar with, which made Zhang Zidi feel relieved at the same time. However, this greeting made Lotus Sun a little nervous. Hey, not following the script, is it okay? Miss Sun doesn't need to worry too much. As long as you do what you set out to do within the stipulated time and according to the historical trajectory, it won't affect the future. It won't affect the future. After saying this, Zhang Zipei couldn't help but sigh. The key now is how to find the others. And how to get out of this mysterious old world. As long as we complete this period of history recorded in the mysterious text and complete the process as it was, it'll be fine, right? In theory. Zhang Zipei nodded. But I still feel that this is a trap set up by someone behind the scenes, and it has been planned for many years. I'm afraid the purpose behind it isn't that simple. This is a great means of crossing timelines and space. Even that guy Golden Lamp couldn't withstand the pressure. And the number of people who have the ability to do this can be counted on one hand. Is it Tao Ancestor Wang? It's possible, but there's no evidence. Zhang Zipei nodded. Apart from Tao Ancestor Wang, it's also possible that it's the 4 emperors who are ranked below him. As he spoke, he tested the keyhole with the wire. After a while, he opened the sealed palace gate and led Lotus Sun in. I remember that I'm going to see a great emperor later? Lotus Sun asked as she followed behind. It's the Great East Emperor. Zhang Zizi replied, and then a hint of suspicion appeared on his face. Strange, Miss Sun didn't get any of her memories? Not at all. I can only deduce from this injured body that it has just gone through a great battle, and this body's original memories have not entered my mind at all. Strange. When I entered the white-robed general manager's body, his memories were synchronized with mine. Sigh, that's not all. I noticed that Ing has also disappeared. Lotus Sun sighed. Sun Yinger? That Void Master? Your shadow. Yes. I'm afraid it won't be easy. Zhang Zizi frowned and suddenly felt the complexity of the problem. What do you mean? There is a very low but terrifying possibility. Zhang Zian whispered, could it be that Goddess Jiao Yang's physical body and spiritual consciousness are separated and synchronized? What Senior Zhang means is that Ing inherited that memory, and I only inherited this body. That's what I mean. Zhang Zizi nodded. If that's the case, it'll be especially troublesome. This means that before we leave this world, we have to find Miss Ing, otherwise we'll change the course of history. According to historical records, Goddess Jiao Yang was burned to ashes in front of everyone in the Eastern Territory by the Great East Emperor Supreme Light Mahamayuri. Since then, there are no historical records, but the truth is that Goddess Jiao Yang is still alive. Furthermore, she will be imprisoned in the Great East Emperor's imperial palace for a very long time, never to leave again. Even so, her soul and body have never been separated. If we leave her alone, I'm afraid it'll cause other variables in the future. As Lotus Sun listened to Zhang Zizi's analysis, her expression became more and more solemn. She hadn't wanted to cause trouble for him, but she hadn't expected her momentary willfulness to actually lead to this situation. This is an inevitability of history. Miss Sun, you don't have to blame yourself or be nervous. We still have a final trump card, don't we? At that moment, Zhang Zizi comforted her. Back in the day, this godly thief had also been a Casanova who had gone around flirting, and he had more or less persecuted all the attractive young women and girls of the ancient ages. Not to mention the thoughts of a little girl like Lotus Sunday. Even if her face was bandaged, Zhang Zizi could read it in her eyes. It was too easy to understand. The trump card that Senior Zhang is talking about, is its student Wang Ling. Who else could it be but Ling Zhenren? Zhang Zizi laughed bitterly. Miss Sun and that Daoist you discovered the mysterious text on the white wall earlier, and Ling Zhenren told you not to get involved. If Ling Zhenren investigated the text, I think there's an 80 to 90% chance that he's also entered this world. He's playing a certain role. So the key now is to find Ling Zhenren. But Ling Zhenren doesn't talk much, so it'll be too difficult to tell which one is Ling Zhenren. Zhang Zizi's head hurt. For example, in the werewolf game, there were always newbie players who were clumsy with their mouths. They got their identity cards but didn't know how to analyze the situation, so they stayed silent for the entire game. In the end, they held their identity cards and were beaten by the wolves. Since entering the modern cultivation world, Zhang Zizi had also become addicted to werewolf games, and meeting this type of silent teammate in a werewolf game was often the most frustrating thing to do. Let's go in first. For now, we can only think of another way. Zhang Zizi sighed as he suddenly felt that the difficulty of this game had skyrocketed. He took Lotus Sun to the interior of the palace, which was originally East Great Emperor's spare Yangxin Palace Hall. It was usually sealed off, and only Yiren had the key. So Zhang Zizi actually had a key on him, but it didn't matter to him whether or not he had the key. Because no matter what kind of lock it was, his iron wire could open it. For Zhang Zizi, the iron wire was a master key. This was a secret meeting. Zhang Zizi took Lotus Sun to the designated place and then put down the gauze curtain on the side. Behind the gauze curtain, Lotus Sun's figure looked hazy and indistinct, as if East Great Emperor had summoned some concubine. No one would have thought that behind the gauze curtain was the blazing sun goddess who had turned to ashes in front of everyone. At that moment, Zhang Zizi rang the bell, and a palace maid entered the palace hall with a tray on which was an exquisite jade porcelain pot. However, this palace maid's walking posture was very strange, as if she was very uncomfortable with the weight of her chest, and she was limping. Chapter 1857. The palace maid walked unsteadily with the tray in her hands. Although there wasn't much of an expression on her face, Lotus Sun and Zhang Ziqin were keenly aware that something was wrong. They looked at each other and confirmed the look in their eyes again, thinking that this palace maid might be on their side. However, not everyone had a particularly obvious habit, and not everyone was like Zhang Zipei, whose body was made of iron wire. So it was hard to tell who was living in this palace maid's body with the naked eye. "Excuse me, are you, little friend Gu Xuanji?" Zhang Ziqin asked without hesitation at that moment. His intuition told him that it was probably a man in this palace maid's body. Because it was very obvious that her walking posture wasn't right, and she seemed to be troubled by the sudden weight on her chest. And there were only a few men among them. If it was Li Xian, Zhang Ziqin could immediately tell that monk Jin Dang had experienced being a woman in countless reincarnations, so it wouldn't feel out of place even if he entered a woman's body. That left Qin Zong, Xiang Yi, Gu Xuanji, and Wang Zhen. Of course, Zhang Ziqin wasn't too familiar with any of them, so he could only rely on his intuition to guess blindly. As soon as he said this, the palace maid instantly looked up with an expression that looked like she was about to cry. "I'm Wang Zhen. Not Gu Xuanji." Pfft. At that moment, Zhang Ziqin and Lotus Sun couldn't help bursting into laughter. Wang Zhen's visibly aggrieved and tearful voice made the two of them burst out laughing. To be honest, after confirming his relationship with Lu Qingyi, perhaps because of Lu Qingyi's strong performance in love, Wang Zhen would occasionally dream of suddenly becoming a woman. For a straight man of steel, this was simply tremendous torture. But Wang Zhen never thought that he would actually encounter this kind of thing one day. Not only had he transmigrated and entered the mysterious diary world, he had even become a palace maid in the imperial palace. Wang Zhen's heart was on the verge of collapse. Furthermore, this palace maid didn't seem to be in good health. Wang Zhen had been feeling nauseous ever since he had entered her body. "So it's brother Wang Zhen. I'm Zhang Ziqin, and the one sitting inside is Miss Sunday Sai. I didn't expect the eternal cultivation realm to be so big, yet the three of us were able to meet here. It must be fate." Zhang Zipei, who was playing the role of Yi Ren, couldn't help but sigh. "I have to find a way back as soon as possible. This body is too weak. I feel like vomiting at the slightest provocation. I can't stay here any longer," Wang Zhen said worriedly. "Weak? It can't be." Hearing that, Zhang Zizi frowned. These are the palace maids of the great emperor's imperial palace. Although they are called palace maids, they are actually hired by the imperial family. Every palace maid has an extraordinary background. The one you're currently possessing is the Holy Stone Cult's holy maiden. She was sent into the palace to gain experience, and her strength is not weak either. She is at the Tao God realm. Wang Zhen was immediately dumbfounded when he heard this. What? Tao God? He was astonished. In their God realm, a Tao God could be the head of a family. But in the Eternal Era, a Tao God was just a palace maid. However, after hearing Zhang Zizi's words, Wang Zhen suddenly felt that the forces of the Eternal Era were very complicated. All the sects actually fought to send their own people into the palace, and they even did it in the name of gaining experience. Why was it completely different from the feudal dynasties in history that he had heard of? So, she really is a holy maiden? The astonishment on Wang Zhen's face didn't diminish. No wonder I saw some scenes of people worshipping her in my memory. However, this holy maiden's memory seems to be incomplete. Her memory after entering the palace is fragmented. Something bad must have happened to her, and she might have selective amnesia. Zhang Zizi said with a frown. According to the memories provided by Yi Ren, he only knew that these men and women who were sent into the imperial palace had extraordinary backgrounds. He only remembered a few special ones, but not all of them had names that matched. For example, the saintess of the Holy Stone Cult usually had a cold expression on her face, which was why Yi Ren had a particularly deep impression of her. It was also because she usually did not speak much and kept a low profile that Yi Ren's understanding of her was limited to her background. But at that moment, he heard Wang Zhen mention that this holy maiden had a weak body. Zhang Zizi's expression began to turn suspicious. He took a few steps forward and grabbed Wang Zhen's wrist. After holding it for a moment, the the smile on his face gradually grew more arrogant. I see. What's wrong? Don't be a riddler, I'm about to die of annoyance, Senior Zhang, Wang Zhen said irritably. If I'm right, it should be that you, oh no, your body is pregnant. Wang Zhen. Lotus Sun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Then what should we do now? If we can't go back, then, Zhang Zizi nodded his head. That's right. If we can't go back, I'm afraid little friend Wang Zhen will have to personally experience the pain of childbirth for 10 months. Wang Zhen, Zhang Zizi also had a sympathetic expression on his face regarding Wang Zhen's misfortune. We were all sent here by the power of the mysterious text, and we haven't found a way to get out yet. Apart from the three of us, we don't know what role the others play in this world. The only way to save us is to find Ling Zhenren. I'm sure he's also playing a role here. Of course, Ling Zhenren doesn't like to talk, so finding him is as difficult as ascending to heaven. If we really can't go back, then, since we're already here, let's just make the best of it. Saying that, he couldn't help patting Wang Zhen on the shoulder with an expression of trying hard to hold in his laughter. This kind of thing would undoubtedly be a heavy blow to anyone who experienced it. No one could have expected such a blunder. Hurry up and sort out your expression, little friend Wang Zhen. Now isn't the time for you to cry, we still have to act according to the plot, otherwise we'll affect the course of history. He did his best to comfort Wang Zhen. Step aside and sort out your emotions first. At the very least, don't let East Great Emperor see through it. The Emperor of the Eastern Territory will be here soon. Okay, but Senior Zhang, you have to think of a way. Wang Zhen nodded. Of course. I'm here, I won't let you and Miss Sun be trapped here forever. At that moment, Zhang Zizi comforted him again. Lotus Sun and Wang Zhen hadn't expected Zhang Zizi to be so unexpectedly reliable at this critical moment. Then, Yangxin Palace Hall immediately quieted down. The three of them waited inside for a while before the shout of an old official came from outside the hall. The Emperor has arrived. A valiant man dressed in a vermilion bird imperial robe and wearing an emperor's jade feather crown on his head slowly strolled into Yangxin Palace Hall surrounded by attendants. Chapter 1858. Just a few hours ago, Wang Ling and East Great Emperor had had a cordial and friendly conversation. Of course, it was Wang Ying who had spoken, and Wang Ling had only asked Wang Ying to pass on the questions while he listened on the side. This directly caused East Great Emperor's back to break out in sweat during the entire questioning process. Compared with Wang Ling, Wang Ying didn't have such a good temper, nor would she spoil East Great Emperor. She had been extremely irritable from beginning to end. East Great Emperor felt a chill run down his spine when he heard every sharp question. He even suspected that he might have invited a Zhu and God to possess him. You mean that you listened to someone else's instructions and set up this trap, but you actually don't know who the person is? Then why did you bring me here for a secret talk? Are you still talking about ghosts? East Great Emperor sat obediently on a praying mat in the depository of Buddhist texts and accepted Wang Ying's reprimand. I swear on my dignity as an emperor that everything I said is true. That person gave me directions in my dream, it was just an outline. I couldn't see his face clearly. Speaking up to this point, East Great Emperor felt very wronged and couldn't help sighing. I thought that after ascending to the throne, I was already invincible under Dao ancestor Wang. I didn't expect that there would always be a higher mountain in the cultivation world. Receiving directions from an almighty was something I happened to encounter by accident. How can I spy on someone with such ability to set up a trap across the ages? So I really don't know anything about his identity. Great God, you should understand, just like I don't know anything about yours. Hearing this, Wang Ying laughed. You're really a very level-headed person. Then let me ask you, is it possible that Dao ancestor Wang is behind this? It doesn't seem like Dao ancestor Wang's style of doing things. East Great Emperor shook his head. Dao ancestor has always been outstanding. Every time he makes a move, it's earth-shattering, and he's eager for others to know about it. He has enough confidence in his strength, so he dares to do this. Thus, Tao ancestors' style has always been to attack quickly, to decide victory or defeat in the shortest possible time. Although I can't rule out the possibility of a long-term plot, I think the possibility is very low. When Wang Ling heard this in secret, he couldn't refute it for a moment. Because based on the current situation, Tao ancestor Wang seemed to have such a personality. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used the sovereign corpse shrouding diagram to find all sorts of excuses and lock up all the primordial ones he could find in a short period of time. On the surface, it looked like Tao ancestor Wang was being unreasonable, but Wang Ling had previously judged that Tao ancestor Wang had done this on purpose. It was highly likely that they were worried that the primordial ones would be destroyed like the Great Old Ones or the dragon race, so they thought of this method to continue the fire seed. Therefore, Tao ancestor Wang must have realized something back then, which was why he made such an extreme move. He didn't even hesitate to ruin his own reputation, making those immortals trapped in the corpse wrapping diagram hate him. You've been talking for half a day, but all you've said is useless nonsense. Let me ask you, have you seen Tao ancestor Wang? Where is this old tortoise now? Can you see him? Wang Ying asked impatiently. To actually call Tao ancestor Wang an old turtle, East Great Emperor was shocked and continued to wipe his sweat. Sure enough, as he had guessed, this great god who had possessed him wasn't Tao ancestor Wang at all, otherwise, there was no way he would speak like this. We 4 emperors have all seen Tao ancestor. How do I put it? He looks more amiable than we imagined, and is a modest gentleman. Although he's called Tao ancestor, he's actually not as old as we imagined, and is full of benevolence. East Great Emperor said with a slightly nostalgic expression, but Tao ancestor's whereabouts are mysterious. Unless he comes to see us, even great emperors have no way of finding him. Also, he never intervenes in the affairs of us 4 emperors. Even when we are at loggerheads, he doesn't intervene. So I don't think it was Tao ancestor who caused the Eastern Territory crisis this time. After asking for a long time, there didn't seem to be any useful information, and Wang Ling and Wang Ying couldn't help feeling a little disappointed. But this experience wasn't completely fruitless. At the very least, it helped them better understand the structure of the cultivation world and the distribution of power in the primordial ones, which would be helpful for Wang Ling's subsequent construction of utopia for the primordial ones. The scene fell into a long silence. As East Great Emperor sweated, he suddenly asked anxiously, Great God. Great God, are you still there? Wang Ying, I've been asking for a long time, but you don't have any information at all. I'm going to leave. East Great Emperor, don't, Great God. You have to stay for a few more days. There's a gathering of the 4 emperors on the trade planet in the Central Territory tomorrow, and I have to write it down in my diary. If you leave now, it won't match up with the contents of the diary. That's your diary, what does it have to do with us? Wang Ying chuckled. Because I'm going to write in my diary that I'm going to reveal Supreme Light Mahamayuri on the trade planet. If you leave, won't I be unable to do it? If I can't do it, I'll affect the course of history. Then destroy it, I'm tired, don't. Great God. Hearing that Wang Ying was going to leave so decisively, East Great Emperor was so anxious that tears instantly welled up in his eyes. Just 2 more days, Great God, please stay for 2 more days at most. The gathering of the 4 emperors is very important, because it involves some of the Western Territory's compensation to our Eastern Territory. If I don't show my Dharma form to demonstrate my power, West Great Emperor won't be afraid of me at all. It was hard to believe that East Great Emperor, who was full of imperial majesty in front of outsiders, actually had this side to him in the depository of Buddhist texts. Wang Ling couldn't help but sigh at the way he humbly begged for help. But the truth was that Wang Ling was still very curious about the eternal cultivation world. Furthermore, the gathering of the 4 emperors and the trade planet sounded very interesting. He wondered if there were any crispy noodle snacks from the eternal cultivation world on sale on this trade planet. Thus, after about 2 or 3 minutes of silence, Wang Ying received Wang Ling's affirmative reply and passed it on his behalf. Then 2 more days at most. Once 2 days are up, I'll leave, Wang Ying said. Okay, Great God. This emperor is here to thank you. Emperor? Emperor's emperor? Wang Ying chuckled. How could I? It's my younger brother's younger brother. East Great Emperor reacted quickly. Big brother. I'm counting on you. Who's your big brother? You sure know how to make connections. Wang Ying couldn't help laughing. What other plans do you have? It seems we're almost done discussing them. I still have to see Jiaoyang later. Big brother, you should know that I didn't execute her. Of course, if she wants to live, she can't use the identity of goddess Jiaoyang anymore. East Great Emperor said, so, I erased her memory. I also used the vermilion bird fire to change her appearance. After the fire is healed, she'll look completely new. And now, I'm going to see her and give her a new identity. Why did you do this for the daughter of a traitor? Wang Ying was curious. Wang Ling was also curious about this. Because she's my daughter. Chapter 1859. Since the beginning of time, Wang Ling felt that he had learned a lot after experiencing it for himself this time. He had learned from East Great Emperor that Jiaoyang was the child of East Great Emperor and an ancient being who wasn't of royal blood when he was young. But out of consideration for his identity and environment, he couldn't directly adopt Jiaoyang. Thus, he entrusted Jiaoyang to his good brother Xing Zihua to adopt. To the outside world, he just said that Xing Zihua had a daughter, and no one would doubt it. But the problem now was that East Great Emperor had long known that goddess Jiaoyang was his daughter. Furthermore, he had entrusted his daughter to his trusted good brother. Why was this Xing Zihua's entire clan exterminated for the crime of treason? This was the biggest question Wang Ling had after learning the whole story. But it was obvious that this had touched a sore spot for East Great Emperor, so he didn't pursue the matter. Wang Ling wasn't a person who liked gossip. Moreover, he had no interest in these ancient affairs that were like a garrulous book about family trifles. Now, he just wanted to know who this Dao ancestor Wang was. And who was the mastermind behind this ancient transmigration. Judging from the clues he had collected so far, Dao ancestor Wang was only a suspect, and wasn't necessarily the mastermind behind this. But apart from Dao ancestor Wang, who else had the ability to do this? Baizha? Or the god of the grave? Although Wang Ling had his doubts, he didn't think that these two people had the ability to set up such a scheme. Otherwise, they would have already defeated him in the previous contests. According to the progress of the diary, what Wang Ling had to do next was to follow East Great Emperor to Yangxin Palace Hall to meet goddess Jiaoyang, who had completely changed her appearance and had even lost that crucial memory. There were so many teleportation spirit arrays in the huge imperial palace that it was impossible to count them all. Thousands of them were intertwined with each other. East Great Emperor had ordered people to set them up, and no one knew the overall layout better than him. Therefore, wherever one wanted to go, they only needed to be proficient in using these spirit arrays to easily complete the teleportation. When Wang Ling arrived at Yangxin Palace Hall, he found goddess Jiaoyang covered in bandages already sitting behind the gauze curtain. In addition, Yi Ren, the only person who knew what was going on, and East Great Emperor's most trusted palace maid were waiting quietly in a secret corner. The rest of the people stood outside the hall in 2 rows and listened to the announcement with their heads lowered. This palace maid's identity is not ordinary. Is he also a member of the royal family? Wang Ying asked directly. That's right, she's the saintess of the Holy Stone cult. I came here to gain experience. The Great East Emperor replied silently in his heart. Oh. Wang Ying answered lightly. However, his gaze remained on the saintess of the Holy Stone sect. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that this saintess had a familiar feeling. In fact, it was not only Wang Ying who felt this way. Wang Ling also felt that there was something wrong with this holy girl. It wasn't just the saintess who felt that something was wrong. Even goddess Jiaoyang felt that something was wrong. The haughty goddess was sitting there, her well-behaved posture revealing a kind of uneasiness. Wang Ling felt that this sitting posture was a little familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. Sometimes, even the slightest movement could make people feel that something was wrong. Thus, Wang Ling's gaze was fixed on this goddess Jiao Yang, hoping to find some clues. During this process, she was also secretly sizing up the Great East Emperor from ancient times. For some reason, she felt that the way the Great East Emperor looked at her seemed a little strange. It was a kind that couldn't be described with words. Her first intuition was that it was very similar to the way Old Man's son looked at her. Reporting to Emperor, Xing Jiaoyang has arrived. She awaits Emperor's judgment. After confirming that the doors of Yangxin Palace were closed and that the Great East Emperor was sitting firmly in his seat, Yi Ren immediately bowed and reported. "Thank you for your hard work, Yi Ren." The Great East Emperor said, "In addition, Yi Ren, you must remember that she will no longer be called Xing Jiaoyang. From now on, she will follow my surname, Xia. Her name will be Xinyan." "Yes." Yi Ren nodded. Then he looked at Goddess Jiao Yang. "Aren't you going to thank Emperor for the name?" While Lotus Sun was in a daze, the Great East Emperor hurriedly waved his hand, the expression in his eyes unusually kind. "Forget it, it's just a name, no need to be so polite." After all, Yi Ren was the white-robed steward at the Great East Emperor's side, and he knew more secrets about the Great East Emperor than anyone else in the imperial palace. Therefore, after hearing this name, Zhang Zipei also quickly received physical feedback from Yi Ren's body and searched for a memory related to this name. It was the truth of the Xing family's rebellion back then, and it was an exceptionally cruel part of history. But for Zhang Zipei, who was also an ancient being, it wasn't so hard to accept. He had long since become numb to all kinds of open and veiled struggles in the ancient times. Back then, it was because he couldn't afford to play with these people that he embarked on a road of no return that relied on stealing to make a living. But who would have thought that after such a long time, not only would he be reborn in modern cultivation society, he would even serve as a consultant for the entire Songhai City anti-pickpocketing squad. Just as Zhang Zipei was in a daze, the Great East Emperor spoke again. "Tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, the Four Emperors' Assembly will be held on a trade planet in the Central Territory. Xia Xinyan will also come with me." According to the script, Zhang Zipei hurriedly retorted, "Emperor, please reconsider. Even if you have already changed your identity, it's still risky. The Great West Emperor is crafty. If something goes wrong, it's fine." The Great East Emperor said calmly, "I want to slap his face in front of him. I want him to never have any evil thoughts about Xinyan in the future. Otherwise, my Supreme Light Mahamayuri will burn the Western Territory into purgatory at any time." This domineering statement reverberated through the spacious hall, causing the atmosphere to become slightly heavy. "Very well, Emperor, since that's the case, please allow me and Miss Holy Maiden of Holy Stone Cult to accompany us as guards." Zhang Zipei bowed. "The two of you are the people I trust the most. I will naturally bring you along with me." The Great East Emperor said, "Also, I need you to inquire about something before we go to the trade planet." "Please instruct me, Emperor," Zhang Zipei replied. "I remember there's a very famous restaurant on the trade planet in the Central Territory called Manjianglu." "Yes, there is such a place." "May I ask if Emperor is inviting a friend?" "No, I want to eat it myself." The Great East Emperor thought for a bit, then said cautiously, "Go ask the chef over there if he knows how to make crispy noodle snacks." Lotus Sun, Wang Zhen and Zhang Zipei. Chapter 1860. This question was more like the secret code used by intelligence agents in spy films. It made the other three people, except for the Great East Emperor, raise their heads. They looked at each other, and although they didn't say anything, they had already activated the team telepathy spell. "No way, it can't be so coincidental." Wang Zhen winked at Zhang Zizi in the dark. "Calm down," Zhang Zizi advised, tilting his head. At the same time, he had an expression of disbelief on his face. Maybe this is a special hobby shared by strong people who appreciate each other. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is Lingzhenren. So there really were crispy noodle snacks in ancient times? Lotus Sun was very curious. I'm not sure. Zhang Zizi sweated. He wasn't interested in snacks to begin with. Although he had claimed to have stolen everything before, that was only limited to the more valuable things. But Zhang Zizi still had his doubts about whether this East Great Emperor in front of him was Wang Ling, but the problem is that Ling Zhenren isn't that talkative, so I think we should be more cautious about whether East Great Emperor is Ling Zhenren or not. Hearing this, Lotus Sun lowered her head and thought for a while before replying, Senior Zhang is right. Student Wang Ling indeed isn't that talkative, but CEO Ing might not be. If Student Wang Ling and CEO Ing are both in East Great Emperor's body, then the person speaking is likely to be CEO Ing. Another possibility is that Student Wang Ling is so awesome. I think he must have entered this mysterious world by himself, instead of being sucked in passively like us. So if Student Wang Ling entered this world of his own accord, then he might have taken the identity of East Great Emperor. This also means that the body Student Wang Ling is using also has East Great Emperor's own consciousness. This series of strong analysis was clear and logical, and there were almost no loopholes in it. Zhang Zizi was instantly stunned. Indeed. After eliminating all the impossibilities, there was only one answer, no matter how impossible the remaining situation was. Awesome, Rongrong. Qingyi always praised you for being smart. After hearing this analysis, Wang Zhen's expression was especially pleasantly surprised. The three of them were discussing in secret using the team telepathy spell, whether they should go one step further and verify Wang Ling's identity with East Great Emperor. At that moment, a familiar voice was suddenly heard. Hee hee, so it's you guys. I thought you guys were a little weird. This was Wang Ying's voice. The three of them hadn't expected Wang Ling and Wang Ying to directly monitor their telepathic communication spell. It's really you, CEO Ying. Then classmate Wang Ling. Hearing the familiar voice, Lotus Sun was instantly pleasantly surprised. He's here too. Didn't the East Great Emperor keep looking at you? Actually, it was the commander who was looking at you. Classmate Wang Ling, is he looking at me? It seems that this sitting posture is slightly familiar. Compared to Goddess Jiaoyang's original appearance, your sitting posture is too obedient. So that's how it is. Lotus Sun's face turned slightly red. She was a little happy. That's right, there's another person besides me and you. However, this person doesn't know about you. I'm the one who has been passing the message on behalf of you. Do you understand what I mean? Understood. The three of them immediately nodded. At that moment, they suddenly heard the deep and magnetic voice of an unfamiliar man. Are you all done recognizing me? This younger brother still has business to attend to. Since you all came in with your upper bodies, please cooperate with me and continue this show. This was the voice of the East Great Emperor. At that moment, the East Great Emperor also joined the team voice chat. It was Wang Ling who had pulled him in. Coupled with Wang Ying's explanation to the East Great Emperor before Wang Ling pulled him in, the East Great Emperor immediately knew what was going on. Sure enough, everything was just as Lotus Sun had guessed. Wang Ling and Wang Ying entered the East Great Emperor's body at the same time, and the East Great Emperor also had his own consciousness. Since the East Great Emperor is here, it's easy. I wonder if this old man can ask the East Great Emperor how on earth we should get out. Zhang Zizi asked. In the team voice chat, Zhang Zizi's voice was his original voice. As soon as he spoke, the East Great Emperor immediately frowned. I know you, you're Zhang Zizi. Zhang Zizi was startled. The East Great Emperor actually knows who I am? East Great Emperor, I didn't expect you to actually be able to survive until the immemorial cultivation world. This was indeed out of my expectations. You must have stolen a lot of the imperial concubines in my harem. Hearing this, Zhang Zizi broke out in a sweat. You actually know, Wang Ling, Wang Zhen and Lotus Sun, East Great Emperor, I'm the East Great Emperor, of course I know. Zhang Zizi, but you never seem to investigate me, East Great Emperor, why should I investigate you? Instead, I should thank you. You've lightened my burden a lot. Everyone, East Great Emperor, forget it, let's not talk about this. Just now you asked how to get out. Actually, it's very simple to leave the world of my diary. You just need to cooperate with me to complete the rest of the script. Lotus Sun, Senior, the problem is that we're not the only ones trapped in this world. We haven't found our companions yet. That's even simpler. Since you've entered my diary. You'll be playing the roles that I've written about in my diary, and any character that has appeared before isn't a nobody. East Great Emperor replied, the 4 emperors will be gathering in 2 days, and all the important figures of the 4 territories will be present. You should be able to take this opportunity to find your friends. This is the last performance. Once it's over, the curtain will fall, and you'll be able to return to the modern world. It won't have any impact on your lives. As for the mastermind behind all this, I've already told Great God Wang Ying everything that needs to be said. I didn't hide anything at all. In short, this great senior behind the scenes isn't simple, and is someone that even we great emperors can't control. Also, this person isn't Dao Ancestor Wang. Zhang Zizi frowned. There aren't many people who can do this. It seems to be Dao Ancestor Wang. But you say it isn't Dao Ancestor Wang. Could there have been someone who could stand shoulder to shoulder with Dao Ancestor Wang in ancient times? There's always someone better, and even with my current vision, I can't say for sure that there isn't one. At this point, East Great Emperor raised his eyebrows. Since you're also an ancient being, Zhang Zizi, then you should be very clear. Before us ancient beings, the overlords of this universe weren't us cultivators from the old era. Perhaps they haven't gone extinct, and are staring at us from the darkness of the abyss. The error-free chapters of the daily life of the Immortal King will continue to be updated on the new C-Book Pavilion. There are no advertisements on the site, so please collect and recommend the new C-Book Pavilion. Those who like the daily life of the Immortal King, please collect. The daily life of the Immortal King's new books are updated the fastest. Chapter 1861. In ancient times, the trade star of the Central Territory actually referred to an entire galaxy. It was also the only rare pure land that didn't have any power disputes. Cultivators from the forces of the 4 major territories could use their own methods to conduct free trade here. There were all kinds of people from all walks of life, and it had always been a bustling area. There were 108 stars in the entire trade star system, and the upcoming gathering of the 4 emperors would focus on the central trade star. Logically speaking, an emperor's trip would be extremely ostentatious, and a divine beast carriage made up of 12 carefully selected divine beasts was almost the standard for an emperor's trip. But this time, perhaps because East Great Emperor wanted to cater to Wang Ling's usual style, he went the opposite way. He was only dressed in casual clothes. The only people he brought with him were the 3 people who had been in the main hall earlier. It looked like there were 4 people going, but in fact there were 8. After all, there was one living in each person's body. In East Great Emperor's view, it didn't matter whether the others went or not, as long as the great god, in his body didn't leave. So even though he was going out incognito, East Great Emperor was especially confident because he had invited a god to possess him. In previous 4 emperors' gatherings, East Great Emperor would send out a lot of people to serve them, and there was no lack of all kinds of heaven-gifted geniuses who had been sent by the East Great Emperor's royal family to the palace to gain experience. In such a bustling place, it was common for the 4 territories to poach each other. Thus, after a 4 emperors' gathering, the number of participants and the number of people they brought would often be different, and even the people who came back would be different. The 4 territories usually looked peaceful, but in private, they were always fighting for talent. For example, the rare battle between East and West Great Emperor this time was also based on this battle for talent. If Goddess Jiao Yang hadn't turned to West Great Emperor and willingly become his pawn, East Great Emperor probably wouldn't have been so passive in the early stages of the battle. Actually, Wang Ling could tell. Currently, the 4 emperors of the 4 territories were still in a situation of mutual checks and balances. Take the battle between East and West Great Emperor for example. Although West Great Emperor had bestowed Goddess Jiao Yang with power, in fact, he hadn't personally fought on the battlefield in the end. Furthermore, his goal was only to help the blazing sun goddess ascend to the throne, not to directly annex the Eastern Territory and attempt to become the great emperor of the Eastern and Western territories. It just so happened that these great emperors were very sensitive to the battle between great emperors. When the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. Given the current situation, it was necessary for any of the domains to exist. Once this balance was broken, it would lead to a war between the cultivators of the 4 domains. The central trade star was full of ancient cities built from ancient bricks, just like what Wang Ling had imagined. If these buildings had been placed in modern times, they would have been an exceptionally magnificent relic of ancient cultivators. It was just that it was very rare for Wang Ling to see something of this scale in modern cultivation life. Even the holy beast King Luo Sha King's remains that he had visited before was just a drop in the bucket compared to the eternal world. After entering the central trade star, Lotus Sun saw some silver-armored guards of the ancient city flying in the air with all kinds of magic weapons in their hands. They looked alert and had sharp gazes, and as they flew in the air, they gave off a great sense of dignity and oppression. Isn't it said that the central region doesn't belong to any force? Lotus Sun couldn't help asking curiously. Miss Sun, you might not know, but these ancient city guards were selected by the great emperors of the 4 domains to guard this place. They are present in all the galaxies of the central region. Furthermore, every ancient city guard is of royal blood. Zhang Zizi explained, according to the 4 domains trade agreement, every 10 years, the 4 great emperors of the 4 domains will personally select the elites of the royal families in the central region to be on duty here. This is also a kind of experience. Once they return from their shifts, the members of the royal family will be rewarded by the great emperors. It's a benefit that's hard to describe with words. Great Emperor East laughed on the spot at these words. It looks like you've visited the homes of these royal families before. Of course, Zhang Zizi admitted generously without any hesitation. You're so generous. Wang Ying couldn't help laughing. It's all in the past, what's there to talk about? Besides, I, Zhang Zizi, have always only taken money, and have never relied on my realm to murder people for money. Zhang Zizi said, the central region may be peaceful, but that's only because of these ancient city guards. If you obtain some supreme treasure in the central region, you'll be in danger after you leave, and you might be targeted. You mean killing people and robbing them? Wang Ying asked. That's right. Zhang Zizi nodded. Unlike the modern cultivation world, the primordial era didn't have such sound laws, and there were too many unruly people. One Earth can be governed, but the galaxies are so big that there are bound to be places that can't be controlled. And these lawless places are places where all kinds of evil thrives. They used the team voice spell to discuss this. In fact, after hearing what Zhang Zizi said, Wang Ling was suddenly very curious about one thing. Would they directly run into Zhang Zizi and Li Xian from the primordial era while attending the 4 emperors gathering this time? After all, Dao ancestor Wang hadn't locked them up in the corpse picture at this time. The 4 emperors gathering was a big event, and many cultivators from all walks of life would come to watch. At the same time, it would greatly increase the overall trade volume of the trading galaxy. Once the overall trade volume increased, it meant that there would be more cultivators who would be able to find supreme treasures. These were all Zhang Zizi's targets. Thus, he thought it would be very interesting to run into the Zhang Zizi from before. Wang Ling and the others settled down in a restaurant. To Wang Ling's disappointment, the chef didn't know how to make crispy noodle snacks. But Wang Ling took this opportunity to hear some other secrets. Did you hear? The Emperor of the East region displayed the Supreme Light Peacock Wisdom King Dharma form. It's simply terrifying. This shows that the great emperors all have trump cards. It's better not to provoke them, those who covet the throne are simply courting death. But the Emperor of the West region doesn't seem convinced, and plans to sell some of the spoils of war he won in his fight with the Emperor of the East region at this auction. Those are immortal objects from the East region Imperial Palace, and are priceless. Ha ha ha, the Emperor of the West region himself never thought that the great Emperor of the East would hide such a trump card. He's definitely flustered and exasperated, so he can only look for a supplement here. But from what I see, it's not certain that this supplement will work. Brother, what do you mean? I heard that the famous godly thief Zhang Zizi is about to make a move. He says he wants to steal something that the Emperor of the West region is planning to auction. Is this true? It's true. The central auction house has already received a notice from Zhang Zizi. Hearing this, Wang Ling and the others were all shocked. They could already see that Zhang Zizi, who was playing the role of Yi Ren, was already holding his forehead with his head lowered. It was obvious that he also didn't want to face this part of history. Wang Ling was astonished. So it turned out that in ancient times, there was a bad habit of sending notice of theft. Deliberately notifying others first before stealing something, this was too Chinibu. Chapter 1862. There was no doubt that this was no different from a public execution for Zhang Ziqin. Although Wang Ling had already had a premonition, he still felt that it was incomparably amazing. Zhang Ziqin actually had to face his dark history again after thousands of years, and his mood at that moment must be exceptionally complicated. It was clear that Zhang Ziqin was blindly confident in his treasure-stealing skills, and didn't even care about the emperor at all. He really had a lot of guts to directly steal something that the emperor had put up for auction. So in history, was the theft successful this time? Wang Zhen couldn't help asking curiously. Of course it was successful, Zhang Ziqin said with a proud expression on his face. West Great Emperor didn't want to kill you? Wang Zhen asked again. He couldn't wait to skin me and chop off my hand. But at the time, he underestimated me and didn't care about me at all. That's not right. I remember that according to history, it didn't seem to be successful, East Great Emperor said at that moment. Actually, it was successful. Zhang Ziqin chuckled. But in order to save face, West Great Emperor used a temporary replica to sell it, and then ordered people to buy it back at a high price. To the outside world, he just said that I, Zhang Ziqin, had failed in the theft. I, Zhang Ziqin, have never failed in the industry. How could I let him spread rumors? At that time, I was furious and decided to carry out a precise revenge. So, I almost didn't let off any of the imperial concubines in West Great Emperor's harem. So, although I, Zhang Ziqin, haven't married, I should have left behind a lot of children. I found out that Senior Zhang, it's really a miracle that you survived. Lotus Sun couldn't help giving him a like in the team voice spell. Logically speaking, Zhang Ziqin's realm hadn't reached its peak yet, but he had actually survived the emperor's pursuit. This was really not easy. Central Trade Star, Central Auction House. This was the largest auction house that integrated the 108 stars of the entire Trade Star system. All the most precious treasures and big deals on the Trade Star would be gathered here. There was still some time before the four emperors gathering, so East Great Emperor decided to come to the auction house to join in the fun. This was originally a historical event, so he had to go. The magnificent palace with richly ornamented beams and painted rafters occupied a vast area. Wang Ling saw several real divine beasts guarding the gate, who exuded an imposing aura without being angry, crouching at the gate under the lead of the auction house manager. An ancient lion-dragon beast. I've read about it in the ancient records at home, Wang Zhen exclaimed. As the name implied, the lion flood dragon beast had the head of a lion and the tail of a flood dragon. Its body was huge, like two small mountains. It was a famous divine beast from ancient times. It was extremely difficult to tame, but once it was tamed, it would be loyal and devoted to its master. It was not easy for a capable person to tame one. Every time the central auction house held an auction, there would be a total of 4 tamed primordial lion-dragon beasts guarding the entrance. It was enough to show how powerful the owner behind the auction house was. A few years ago, I remember that there were only 2 divine beasts guarding the gate, lion flood dragon beasts. I didn't expect there to be 4 this year. Moreover, they were all adults. The owner of the central auction house is indeed powerful. An old woman with snow-white hair coiled up high stepped out of a bronze chariot with the help of a walking stick. She had a kind face and exuded an imposing aura without being angry. she was a top expert in secret. With one glance, Wang Ling could tell that this old woman was no ordinary person. At the very least, she was a progenitor expert who had just entered the Dao ancestor realm not long ago. This is the leader of Immortal Mountain sect, Madame Shan Xiu. Zhang Zi secretly introduced her. So it's the leader. No wonder she has such an extraordinary bearing, Lotus Sun exclaimed. Cultivators from ancient times had retained their most primitive style and were of all shapes and sizes, which was very different from modern cultivation society. This wasn't something that could be found in school textbooks in the modern cultivation world. Seeing with one's eyes and feeling with one's heart would be of great help and enlightenment. Welcome, Madame Shan Xiu. As soon as the auction house manager saw the old woman, he immediately knew who she was and bowed in greeting. Madame Shan Xiu nodded slightly with a kind expression on her face. She swept her gaze over the 4 divine beasts guarding the gate, then walked in unhurriedly. Even a progenitor expert would feel a little pressure in the face of these 4 enormous divine beasts guarding the gate. If even a grand progenitor expert felt this way, then the rest of the people who had entered the auction house were even more apprehensive. So scary, don't worry, these lion flood dragons have been tamed. They won't attack people without orders. Passing by the gate, an insider said, they guard the gate and serve as a good deterrent. It's also a kind of screening. Those who are too weak aren't qualified to enter the central auction house. They'll faint as soon as they pass through the gate. I see. Hearing this, a passerby on the side nodded hurriedly. But there's still something I don't understand. Why did they put 4 at the gate this time? It's said that the famous godly thief Zhang Zidi will be here today to steal the great emperor's auction items, so 2 more were added at the last minute. Wang Ling and the others, Great Emperor East was puzzled in the team telepathy spell. It definitely wouldn't be a problem for you to go in with Li Ren's body, but with your realm at the time, could you enter the auction house without a hitch? There's only one entrance to the central auction house, and the rest of the hall is protected by a barrier. If you want to get inside, you can only go through the main gate. Indeed. In a trance, Zhang Zidi also felt like his memory was a little messed up. In my memory, it was very smooth to enter the central auction house back then, and there shouldn't have been so many gatekeeping divine beasts at all. So, this emperor has always wondered if you were bragging. Great Emperor East was speechless. He never had a very good impression of Zhang Zidi. His only good impression was that Zhang Zidi had harmed Great Emperor West's imperial concubines later in history. Although a small number of Great Emperor East's imperial concubines had also been harmed by Zhang Zidi, but while Zhang Zidi was a scourge, he didn't leave behind any seeds to sprout in the East Imperial Palace next year, unlike Great Emperor West's side, which was already a vast prairie. Whether I'm bragging or not, we'll know later. Zhang Zidi snickered. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Let's go in first. Great Emperor East waved his hand, too lazy to bicker with Zhang Zidi. Dressed in civilian clothes, they pretended to be passers-by cultivators, with Wang Ling, who was playing the role of Great Emperor East, walking at the front. At that moment, Wang Ling could feel the auction house manager's gaze on him as he moved, as well as the gazes of the 4 gatekeeping lion-dragon beasts. This was originally a kind of deterrence. Everyone who entered the central auction house would experience this kind of intense gaze to prove that they had a high enough realm to enter the auction house and participate in the transaction. However, something unexpected happened. Just as the gazes of the 4 lion-dragon beasts fell on Wang Ling, a terrifying and dangerous aura was instantly reflected back at him. All spiritual pressure and oppressive gazes had no effect on Wang Ling, and instead triggered Wang Ling's passive ability to reflect oppression, just for a moment. The eyes of the 4 gatekeeping lion-dragon beasts widened as they sweated profusely. Because there were so many people entering at the same time, they had no idea who on earth was reflecting this oppressive force. It was just that when that person passed through the gate, it was as if a large machete had been directly pressed against their necks, making them feel cold all over. Rumble. Just as Wang Ling entered the auction house, there was the rumble of a huge object falling to the ground in front of the gate. The commotion was so huge that the ground beneath their feet trembled. Wang Ling never thought that just by walking through the gate, he would actually scare off 4 lion-dragon beasts. He sighed in his heart. This was too useless. What kind of divine beasts were they? They weren't even as strong as his loopy toad. Chapter 1863. The gatekeeping divine beasts had suddenly fallen to the ground, and none of the 4 lion flood dragons were left. They were all foaming at the mouth and twitching on the ground, and no one knew what had happened. Even so, the central auction house's management was still orderly. They were usually prepared for this kind of emergency response, but it was a little rare for all the gatekeeping divine beasts to fall at once. A tall woman in a cheongsam with an almost perfect figure and a communications jade in her hand gave instructions on the spot. Her name was Chen Yanan, the head of the central auction house's management team, and she was responsible for maintaining order in the auction house. Team 1, listen to my command, immediately use the backup gatekeeping divine beasts. Team 2, move all 4 lion flood dragons away, and don't cause a jam in front of the auction house. Chen Yanan reacted quickly and spoke quickly. In addition, I need to report this to the president. I will personally report the situation to him, and in the meantime, you will take over maintaining order in front of the door and listen to the deputy manager's command. After entering the auction house, Wang Ling immediately heard all the arrangements in front of the door. It could only be said that this central auction house was more formidable than he had imagined. After all, this was during the 4 emperors' gathering, and it was a serious incident for the gatekeeping divine beasts to make such a mistake. However, the central auction house hadn't been thrown into disarray by this unexpected situation, which showed how well prepared their emergency response was. But after what had happened, there was suddenly more to talk about in the auction house's hall, and it instantly became even livelier. Strange, these 4 lion flood dragons are full of energy and are plump and strong. They don't look sick at all. Why did they suddenly faint? Didn't that Zhang Zidi say he was going to steal Great West Emperor's auction item today? Maybe he did it. That's right. It must be Zhang Zidi. Maybe he's already snuck in. But that doesn't make sense. Is Zhang Zidi's realm that strong? Even if he did it, is it possible for him to take down 4 divine beasts at once? God knows. He's been sneaking around all day. Maybe he managed to steal some secret medicine that instantly increased his strength. Several cultivators who had come to participate in the auction were talking loudly in the hall, and Zhang Zidi, who was pretending to be Li Ren, broke out in a cold sweat. Now, he finally knew why there hadn't been so many gatekeeping divine beasts when he had come back then. Moreover, he also knew why he was being hunted by the Great West Emperor and the president of the central auction house after the end of the auction. This bank manager was a lion flood dragon fanatic and loved his 4 lion flood dragons very much. Now that the crowd had pinned the blame on him, it was no wonder that the bank manager hated him so much. At this moment, spiritual light appeared in the sky. Above a huge cloud, a young man in golden armor appeared, holding an iron throne in his hand. He was extremely domineering. Beside him stood a snake-bodied woman. They were originally from the human race, but they were willing to accept the Great Western Emperor's implantation spell. They were implanted with the blood of a divine beast called the Snake God, and then turned into this half-beast state. Their figures were graceful, and they stood to the left and right, completely ignoring the gazes of others. They only focused on serving the golden-armored young man. That's King Tiankuan under the Great Western Emperor. Someone cried out in alarm, recognizing this person's origins. This iron throne was bestowed by the Great Western Emperor. It indicated that King Tiankuan didn't need to pay his respects in the palace of the Great Western Emperor. He could sit on equal footing with the Great Western Emperor. No one could enjoy the same treatment as King Tiankuan. This was a general who guarded the order of the Great Western Emperor in the Western region and pacified wars everywhere, and was regarded as the symbol and representative of the Great Western Emperor. No one thought that King Tiankuan would actually come to this central auction house this time. I heard that someone wants to make trouble at this auction. This king wants to see if that Zhang Zizi can steal the Chaos Immortal stone that I, the Great Western Emperor, want to sell right under my nose. He sneered and directly stepped through the door with a majestic gait and extraordinary domineering air. In the great hall, the various powers had gathered. Batch after batch of people arrived, all of them with esteemed statuses. They were all well-known figures. Wang Ling had a hunch that some of his other companions, who had been scattered all over this world, would definitely be in this auction house at this time. The key was how to accurately distinguish them. Wang Ling's gaze was languid as he swept his eyes over everyone. Then, the Great Eastern Emperor led everyone to a private room on the upper floor. This was a VIP room, a must-have in the auction house, and it was impossible to sit here without a certain amount of wealth. As soon as she pushed the door open and entered, she was deeply attracted by the dazzling array of exquisite jade porcelain in front of her. Objects from the ancient times were extraordinary, and she was always curious about them. "Sir, if you want to sit here, you have to promise to win at least one treasure in this auction." At that moment, Wang Ling heard the voice of the team leader who had been in charge of order at the door. Chen Yanan had never seen the Great Eastern Emperor before, and when faced with him who was out incognito this time, she had no idea what kind of background this plainly dressed young man in front of her was. Thus, she kindly reminded Wang Ling that there was a minimum expenditure in this private room, and that he had to guarantee that he would win at least one treasure in this auction before he could sit. "I understand the rules." The Great Eastern Emperor smiled, then waved his hand to indicate that Zhang Zizi would pay. Li Ren had already prepared all the expenses for this four emperors' assembly in his storage bag. The ancient cultivator's currency was the Chaos Spirit Stone, a spirit stone that combined the power of chaos, which was already extinct in modern cultivation society. Without hesitation, Zhang Zizi directly paid Chen Yanan a full 100 million Chaos Spirit Stones as a deposit for the private room. If they didn't win at least one treasure in the end, the deposit couldn't be refunded. "Sir is generous." Chen Yanan nodded in satisfaction. She was just doing things according to the rules, and didn't mean to look down on anyone. After all, the people who could enter this auction house weren't simple. After receiving the deposit, Chen Yanan personally escorted them in, then saluted at the door before slowly strolling away. "She's just a central auction house administrator, but she doesn't know the seniors?" She was incredulous. The people in the imperial palace rarely go out, so it's normal that she doesn't know them. Li Ren is Great Eastern Emperor's personal guard, and even fewer outsiders know about him. Zhang Zizi replied through the team voice spell, "Also, even if they're lucky enough to meet the emperor, most people don't have enough cultivation to see his true face." This answer instantly made her understand. This effect was similar to Wang Ling's Great Shielding spell. "Great Eastern Emperor, we just spent 100 million, how much do we have left?" In the private room, Zhang Zizi immediately imitated Li Ren's tone and replied, "Your Majesty, there are 2 billion Chaos Spirit Stones left." Great Eastern Emperor was shocked. "But I remember that I only had Li Ren prepare 500 million, Zhang Zizi chuckled. "It's like this, I couldn't help it just now, and it was a little smooth. If everyone is a little smooth, they won't notice." Wang Ling, Wang Ying, Wang Zhen, Lotus Sunday. "As expected of you." Lotus Sun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Senior Zhang, I thought you'd changed, this is bad behavior." Zhang Zizi couldn't help sighing. Under the influence of the rule of law in modern cultivation society, it's been a long time since I've done something like this except for when I have to carry out missions. But now that I'm back here, I still can't help it. It's a conditioned reflex, I can't blame it all on me. It's fine, if I don't use the money later, I'll donate it all. I'll just think of it as robbing the rich to help the poor. Chapter 1864. Casually taking advantage of others was Zhang Zistiel's old habit. According to the data from several previous experiments on Zhang Zistiel by the higher-ups of Battle Sect, Zhang Zistiel's hands and brain were completely separate. That was to say, when Zhang Zistiel took advantage of others, 7 out of 10 of them were purely passive skills, which would suddenly activate. Walking on the street, from one end to the other, there would always be something in his pocket that even Zhang Zistiel had no memory of. Everyone was helpless about this. Although they had already tried their best to help Zhang Zistil correct this bad habit, he still occasionally couldn't help it. Senior Zhang's ability to take advantage of others has always been amazing. Lotus Sun smiled helplessly. But won't Senior Zhang's actions affect the course of history? Absolutely not. East Great Emperor also laughed. Zhang Zistil from ancient times was also present at today's auction. Even if someone else discovers that something is missing, in the end, they will think that it was Zhang Zistil from ancient times. Everyone, this was the first time in his life that he had ever seen someone use this method of framing himself. The course of history, the inevitability of history, hiding in East Great Emperor's body. Wang Ling carefully pondered these 2 points, and became increasingly curious about the mastermind behind the scenes. He rarely had the experience of being arranged by someone else like this. Although he was a little unhappy, he also felt a rare sense of novelty. If the other party had the ability to set him up, didn't that mean that this person had the strength to fight him? He wasn't very curious. What Baizha? What god of the grave? He didn't care about these rotten fish and shrimps. As a progressive young man in the modern cultivation society's education system, he felt that he should look to the long-term future, and always had expectations for the future. He looked forward to the appearance of someone who could truly unlock all his seals and let him fight to his heart's content. Heavenly Room 1. Who on earth is that person? It feels a little special. In Room 9, West Great Emperor's representative, King Tiankuan, spoke lightly. The snake maid next to him bent over and asked, "Should we check his identity?" King Tiankuan thought for a bit, then waved his hand. Forget it. Anyone who can afford to sit in this private room isn't an ordinary person. There's no need to deliberately test who the other party is. We'll know when the auction begins. His gaze was fixed on the private room Wang Ling and the others were in, and there was some interest in his eyes. Soon, the auction began. A young man in a black robe and the auctioneer, Miss Chen Yanan, went on stage together to host the auction. Many people were surprised that such a young man would be the auctioneer of this auction. Isn't he too young? It's an important auction during the assembly of the 4 emperors, and they actually let a hothead be the auctioneer? If the auction item is a heaven treasure, will he faint as soon as he touches it? Don't look down on this little brother. His name is Lu Renwen. I heard that he's the son of the Central Auction House's president. At the age of 9, he already had a sage body. He's stronger than many of you sitting here. The moment he said that, many people instantly fell silent. Becoming a sage at the age of 9. What kind of concept was that? Without a doubt, he was a genius. For a long time, the identity of the president of the Central Auction House had been a mysterious existence in the hearts of many people. But they had never thought that this president's son would be so heaven-defying. If the son's aptitude was already like this, then wouldn't the father's talent be even more astonishing? Wang Ling sat in the VIP room at the top, taking in everything at a glance. There were also auction houses like this in modern cultivation society, but Wang Ling had never been interested in the magic treasures being auctioned. None of them could beat the things in his king's treasure pants. Can I temporarily join the auction? Wang Ying asked. This was something that was not allowed in the modern cultivation society. Modern cultivators were very particular about rules and regulations, and required that all prepared items for auction be rigorously appraised in advance to ensure that there were no errors. They absolutely weren't allowed to join the auction midway. This was because there was a huge risk of substandard or fake goods. After all, it was very difficult to appraise a magic treasure in a very short period of time. This was a great test of an appraiser's ability, and if there was a mistake in the appraisal, the substandard or fake goods would be sold. Then in modern society, this auction house's life would come to an end. But it was very clear that in the eternal world, auction houses didn't have that many complicated rules. Hearing Wang Ying's question, East Great Emperor immediately replied in the team voice spell, of course. But there are requirements for the items to be auctioned. Why, do you want to add something to the auction? Won't it affect the course of history? Wang Ying asked cautiously. No. East Great Emperor shook his head without hesitation. After receiving his reply, Wang Ying also received Wang Ling's instructions, and continued to communicate with East Great Emperor. Very well, I'll give you something to sell later. As soon as the voice in the private room fell, the first item from the auction house was brought to the stage. It was an extremely exquisite bowl-shaped vessel that was completely transparent. It was made of a material similar to jade, and even its luster was similar. However, this was definitely not an ordinary jade bowl, but rather an undying artifact that was nurtured from the primal chaos. A natural all-life bowl, a treasure born from chaos. It has a 20% concentration of chaos. Wearing white gloves, the president's son, Lu Renwen, introduced the bowl's origin to everyone in a very professional manner. He touched it directly with his hands, completely unafraid of the primal chaos chi that seeped out of this chaos weapon. With the help of the projector ball magic treasure, an image of the bowl was magnified into the air, so that all the auction participants could clearly see all the details of the bowl. In the end, she's Jiaochu with a sage body. She's too strong to directly touch a chaos weapon. My focus seems to be wrong. A bowl with a 20% concentration of chaos is indeed very rare. But why is it called the all-life bowl? A lot of people were curious. Then, Lu Renwen began to introduce its currently known effects in more detail. After many experiments in this line, the results show that the all-life bowl has the effect of replication. The all-life bowl has the effect of replication. For example, as long as you place an intact elixir in the bowl. After a period of time, a new replicated elixir will be completely replicated in the bowl. However, the efficacy of the replicated elixir will be reduced to 52% to 78% of the original elixir, and it will consume the all-life bowl's concentration of chaos. The concentration of chaos can recover on its own. As long as you're not greedy and don't overuse it in one go, you can maintain this ability. Of course, if the concentration of chaos is directly replicated to zero, the bowl will directly shatter. The precise calculation and the incomparably detailed introduction of the magic treasure directly proved the professionalism of the central auction house. And Lu Renwen's introduction instantly caused many of the cultivators present to be tempted. To be able to directly replicate elixirs. If a high-quality treasure or tonic was placed inside, once the replication was successful, it meant that one could absorb even more medicinal efficacy. Furthermore, as long as one wasn't greedy, this bowl could be used continuously. This was undoubtedly a huge temptation to the cultivators who were bitterly searching for a breakthrough in the ancient times. Chapter 1865. This was a chaos tool with a special function. It was very unusual. However, in reality, there were countless chaos tools that were born naturally in the universe that had special functions. There was a dazzling variety of abilities. But most of them were useless and impractical, and could only be broken down into fine particles and refined into chaos crystals to help the ancient ones cultivate. But this life and all things bowl's function was a little unusual, and actually had the special ability of a treasure bowl. Wang Ling felt that if he could enchant it, the replica created by this bowl might be far more powerful than the original. But he wasn't interested in this bowl. Even if these ancient ones were going to fight over it, it was just a bowl to him. Among the Heaven's Path techniques, his great replication technique could perfectly achieve this function. In the next few minutes, Qin Yanan was in charge of delivering the bowl upstairs to the VIP rooms that were interested in it. The god-level tycoons in the VIP rooms had the right to touch and appraise it at close range. If they were interested, they just needed to light the red spirit lantern hanging in front of the door. After injecting some spirit energy into it, the lantern would light up completely. This bowl is very good. The concentration of chaos is also suitable, and there's a lot of room for improvement. If you take it to an expert refiner and modify it, it'll have a bright future, said an old woman. This was none other than Madame Shanxiu, the head of Immortal Mountain sect. This was a rare praise from an almighty, and instantly made everyone even more interested in the bowl. Just when Wang Ling thought that someone was going to make an extremely outrageous bid, in the end, in the main hall below, a young man in a luxurious outer robe raised his hand. I bid 10,000 chaos spirit stones. Wang Ling choked when he heard this. 10,000 chaos spirit stones? He had thought that this bowl would cost at least 1 million. Furthermore, everyone present seemed to have brought a lot of money with them, ranging from millions to tens of millions. Otherwise, Zhang Zipei wouldn't have been able to steal so much at once. In the end, Wang Ling was a little surprised that the person below had only bid 10,000. Chaos weapons are so cheap. Wang Ying was also amazed, and immediately asked. It's not that chaos weapons are cheap, it's that chaos spirit stones are valuable. Everyone here is a dignitary, so it's normal for them to bring a lot of money. But this is how things should be, Zhang Zipei answered. It was only now that Wang Ling finally understood how wasteful it was for East Great Emperor to directly have Zhang Zi stake 100 million spirit stones for this VIP room. The East Great Emperor also smiled. It's mainly because this is the first auction item. He wouldn't ask for such a high price. The good stuff was at the back. Don't look at how restless these people are. In fact, they are all very cunning. Senior, I have a question. Doesn't the auction house set a minimum price? Lotus Sun asked. According to the central auction house's rules, there is no reserve price for the first auction item. It can be considered a special benefit of the auction house, the East Great Emperor replied. So that was how it was, the others nodded in agreement. I'll bid 11,000 chaos spirit stones. 20,000. Please don't fight with me. I'm determined to get this bowl. This time, Wang Ling was completely bewildered by the pricing standards of ancient times. He didn't expect the chaos spirit stones to be so valuable. In his opinion, they were just broken stones floating in the primal chaos of the universe, and he could casually pick up quite a few of them. Listening to the incessant bids from below, his heart drummed. He didn't know how much he would be able to sell the thing he was going to sell for, and he was extremely nervous. In the end, the bowl was won by a young man in the hall for 160,000 chaos spirit stones. The second auction item was the skull of a divine beast. Like the first auction item, the auctioneer Lu Renwen was the first to give a detailed introduction of the skull. This is the skull of the Jade Fire Primordial Thunder and Lightning Universe-shaking Devil Tianxiang 8-eyed 9-tailed steel-winged Skyfire 4-legged beast. After Lu Renwen finished speaking, Wang Ling, Lotus Sun, Wang Ying and Wang Zhen were all stupefied. How could the name of this divine beast be so long? Why couldn't it be abbreviated? It was such a long list, he really couldn't remember it wrong. But as a professional auctioneer, Lu Renwen still showed his professional attitude. Jade Fire Primordial Thunder and Lightning Universe-shaking Devil Tianxiang 8-eyed 9-tailed steel-winged Skyfire 4-legged beast. As we all know, this is a very rare divine beast of the universe. Its genes and bloodline later evolved into a series of divine beasts. Kuan Peng, Cheong Qi, Bai Fong and so on, all of which are related to it by blood. Lu Renwen said, the skull of the Jade Fire Primordial Thunder and Lightning Universe-shaking Devil Tianxiang 8-eyed 9-tailed steel-winged Skyfire 4-legged beast that we got today is only a small part of it, but its value is immeasurable. It can be used to assist in cultivation, and can even be used to refine into one's own magic weapon. Perhaps there will be unexpected gains. For the second item, each bid increment must be no less than 50,000 chaos spirit stones. As soon as he said that, the audience burst into an uproar. There was immediately a heated discussion. This central auction house was too powerful to actually be able to get their hands on such a rare divine beast skull. The group instantly rubbed their palms together. Wang Ling saw a few people below stand up as if they were performing a group comedy. This skull of the Jade Fire Primordial Thunder and Lightning Universe-shaking Devil Tianxiang 8-eyed 9-tailed steel-winged Skyfire 4-legged beast is something I must have. I offer 200,000 chaos spirit stones. If fellow Taoists are willing to let me have it, I will be eternally grateful. Hee, do you think this skull is yours just because you said the name smoothly? Someone immediately stood up and said unconvinced. It was as if he was deliberately competing to see who had the smoothest tongue. He read out the complete string of names even faster. My lord is very interested in the skull of the jade fire primordial thunder and lightning universe-shaking devil Tianxiang eight-eyed nine-tailed steel-winged skyfire four-legged beast, and hopes to use it in medicine. Whoever dares to snatch it, once you leave the central territory with the skull, be careful of your life. I offer 280,000 chaos spirit stones. Only 280,000? Brother, there's no point in threatening others here. I offer 500,000. A middle-aged man laughed. He had slicked back blonde hair and was dressed in gorgeous clothes. Judging from his aura, he was also a big shot. No one knows this jade fire primordial thunder and lightning universe-shaking devil Tianxiang eight-eyed nine-tailed steel-winged skyfire four-legged beast better than me. It's only in my hands that it can display its true value. The opening bid of 500,000 instantly gave Wang Ling a sense of the rich and overbearing atmosphere of an auction house. Wang Ling could also see it now. For these godly tycoons, it actually didn't matter how much an item was sold for. Whether it was expensive or cheap, the first thing was to have momentum. Sometimes, an item was sold for a high price not because it was worth the money, but mostly because of the higher-ups. Chapter 1866. For the sake of a spirit beast skull, these ancient dignitaries in the hall were all in a frenzy. The skull of an ancient divine beast like this had an extraordinary origin. What was even more precious was that this skull symbolized the origin of several bloodlines. Even if he didn't use it after buying it, there was still a lot of room for appreciation if he kept it by his side. Of course, although it was good, it was still useless to him. We have to bid for this skull. I remember that you were the final winner of this skull, Zhang Zipi said at that moment. East Great Emperor nodded. Bid. Zhang Zipi, how much is appropriate? East Great Emperor, I didn't write down the specific details in my diary, but it doesn't matter. Just make sure this skull is mine. But my suggestion is that we don't bid in this round. We can put up an auction item, and use the proceeds from the auction to offset the cost. As soon as he said this, Zhang Zipi immediately looked enlightened. Right. I remember. That's what happened. Back then, you sold one thing and used the money from that thing to buy a bunch of things, but I can't remember what you sold. After all, the timeline spanned a long time, and Zhang Zipi only had vague memories of what had happened in the past, and had long since forgotten the specific details. At that moment, East Great Emperor suddenly smiled meaningfully. This thing isn't mine. It's an auction item provided by Guru Wang Ying. Wang Ling was blank when he heard this. He hadn't expected things to fall back on him so soon. He had been thinking about what to sell, but according to old Wang's family rules, he couldn't use his own abilities to make money, so it was obviously inappropriate to take out the divine objects in Wang Jibao's pants for auction. After thinking for a long time, a slender object with a golden flash and a vortex finally appeared in front of East Great Emperor. What powerful spirit power! No. It's not just spirit power, there are many other sources of energy. There's also rich primal chaos chi. East Great Emperor's eyes instantly lit up. There was no doubt that this shiny slender object gave him a pleasant surprise, as if he had drawn a golden legend. His reaction was quick, and he immediately lit the lantern in front of the VIP room to call the appraiser upstairs. Come, take a look. How much can this item be sold for? The East Great Emperor had a confident look on his face as he handed the golden thread to the appraiser. The appraiser took it with both hands. Before he could appraise it, he smelled a strong fragrance. After a moment of careful observation, the auctioneer revealed an incomparably shocked expression. Forgive this old man's poor eyesight. I really can't tell what kind of divine beast's hair this is. So, you can't sell it? No, of course it can be sold. The old appraiser looked excited. This thing is too strong. Not only does a tiny strand of hair emit a refreshing fragrance like a spring breeze, it actually contains such a powerful energy. If we can obtain this divine beast's hair, we can use it to refine elixirs or use it to refine weapons. There will be extraordinary benefits. It can even be used as the core of a formation. With this hair as the eye of the formation, it can change the flow of the spiritual chi of heaven and earth, aiding in the cultivation of spiritual chi. If the sect is built around this formation, they won't have to worry about the loss of spiritual chi for thousands of years. This introduction made everyone dumbfounded. Lotus Sun laughed. Is it really that valuable? Could old Sir have made a mistake? This old man definitely won't make a mistake. It's just that I can't tell what kind of divine beast's hair it is, so I wanted to ask. Sorry, I don't know either. East Great Emperor spread his hands. I just happened to obtain it. I haven't verified what kind of divine beast it is yet. There's no other way. If we want to participate in the auction, we can only package it up for this hair, the appraiser said. Package it up? How? Wang Zhen asked. It's to perfect the information on this divine beast's hair. Make up a story. The old appraiser wasn't surprised as he said, for example, do you really think there's a divine beast with such a long name? That's just something we made up. It's actually made up. Lotus Sun was shocked. There's no other way. In order to make the product look better, we can only package it up. The appraiser said, the name is long to make people feel unfamiliar with this divine beast. But all the participants in the auction are dignitaries in the cultivation world, and it's impossible for them to publicly say that they don't know the origin of this divine beast. Thus, no one will care about the authenticity of this divine beast's name. On the contrary, in order to show that they are familiar with this divine beast, no matter how long the name is, they'll say it without a single mistake. Otherwise, do you think that such a long name is for those unscrupulous biographers to fill up the word count? I see. Lotus Sun was enlightened. Wang Ling, the appraiser, I'm telling you all this because I want to tell you that we're on the same team now. In order to sell it at a high price, we need everyone's cooperation. No matter how outrageous the story is, you have to stay calm. Lotus Sun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. But we don't know how to make up stories. At most, we can think of a name. The appraiser thought for a while, then said calmly, that's easy. Just think of a name, and leave the rest to us. A few minutes later, Lu Renwen received this piece of divine beast hair that had been added to the auction at the last minute, along with a written description. The divine beast hair had already been covered in a cover, and it was packaged extremely well. The expression on his face was very calm as he skimmed through the description, then said in a loud voice, ladies and gentlemen, the first temporary auction item of this auction has been produced. This is an item provided by the guest in Heavenly Room 1, and the proceeds from this auction can be used directly for other auctions in this auction. After saying that, he opened the black cover, and in an instant, the shiny golden hair gave off an incomparably dazzling light. Lu Renwen said, as you can see, according to the professional appraisal results of our appraiser, this is a very, very rare piece of divine beast hair. The hair of a perfect Tianluo raccoon. What? So it's the hair of a perfect Tianluo raccoon. I have heard of this divine beast. Oh my god. Such strong spirit power, no. It's not just spirit power, there's other types of energy. Especially the density of the primal chaos chi, it's really frightening. My god, so it's a perfect Tianluo raccoon. Where on earth does the guest in room 1 come from? How can he have such a divine item? The energy in this hair is too strong, far greater than that of the skull that was just brought up. If I refine it, I might be able to attain immortality. Fill my body so that I never dry up. He himself never expected that a single strand of hair he had enchanted would actually be blown away like this. The error-free chapters of the daily life of the Immortal King will continue to be updated on the new Sea Pavilion of Books. There are no advertisements on the site, so please collect and recommend the new Sea Pavilion of Books. If you like the daily life of the Immortal King, please collect. The daily life of the Immortal King is updated the fastest in the new Sea Pavilion of Books. Chapter 1867. It was just a hair of a mythological beast, yet it could be sold for such a sky-high price. It was unprecedented in the entire history of the central auction house. No one would have thought that this mythological beast's hair would be so valuable. Although most people had never heard of this mythological beast's name and did not know where it came from, it was a fact that this strand of hair was emitting an astonishing energy. If he could refine it effectively, not only would he be able to refine pills and forge artifacts, he might even be able to comprehend the secret techniques of this divine beast from its fur. If I can comprehend the secret hidden in the hair, I will definitely be able to reach a higher level. Wang Ling was stupefied. These people were getting more and more ridiculous. This was just a strand of his hair. Wanting to comprehend a secret technique through the strand of hair was a bit too far-fetched. The person who got this strand of hair wouldn't be able to comprehend any secret techniques, they would just have a craving for crispy noodle snacks. Of course, Wang Ling had given this head this name for a deeper reason. How much he could sell it for wasn't that important to him, what was important was that he needed to test everyone's reactions with this made-up name. Those god tycoons who pretended to have heard of this divine beast's name were definitely not people from the war sect who had crossed over from the modern era. In the primordial era, there were no divine beasts called raccoons at all. Therefore, if one heard this name and did not join in the fun, they could be included in the list of suspects who were suspected of being possessed by the souls of the people of the war sect. At that moment, Wang Ling's eyes were fixed on King Tianquan, who was regarded as the representative of Great West Emperor. This person did not participate in the competition from the beginning. Not only did he not participate in the auction directly, but he also did not show much surprise on his face when he heard this strange name. In Wang Ling's opinion, King Tianquan instantly became very suspicious. He had reason to believe that there might be a little friend from Battle Sect hiding inside King Tianquan's body. However, if he was hiding inside, then his acting was too good. There was no way to find any flaws in his acting. Do you all feel this King Tianquan to be suspicious? Wang Ying asked. A little. Wang Zhen nodded. He wasn't directly involved, nor did he react strangely. Other than that, Madame Shan Xiu from the Celestial Mountain sect was also very suspicious. The two of them had not made any big moves. He seems very calm. I agree with Brother Wang Zhen. I also feel that these two are a little strange, but I can't shake the feeling that something isn't right. Lotus Sun also joined in the discussion. She frowned slightly. Her intuition told her that things weren't as simple as they seemed. While everyone on Wang Ling's side was secretly speculating, King Tianquan, who had remained calm all this time, suddenly stood up unexpectedly. 3 million Chaos Spirit Stones, I'll take it. The moment he opened his mouth, he offered 3 million. It was a price that crushed the entire audience. No one expected that the extremely powerful King Tianquan in the West would choose to make a move at this time. Wang Ling had thought that given King Tianquan's level of influence, as long as he made a move, there probably wouldn't be many people who would dare compete for him for fear of offending him. If it was an ordinary auction house, it would definitely develop according to the above trend. However, it was different here. Just as King Tianquan had said at the beginning, those who could enter the central auction house all possessed extraordinary identities. Now that King Tianquan was directly participating in the auction, more people became interested in Wang Ling's hair. Who was this person? King Tianquan. He was known as the representative and embodiment of the Great West Emperor. Even such a person was participating in the auction. Furthermore, the moment he opened his mouth, he offered a frighteningly high price, which proved the value of this hair. Sure enough, it's just as I guessed. This divine beast hair is extraordinary. Even King Tianquan has joined the competition. Everyone, King Tianquan is currently bidding 3 million Chaos Spirit Stones. Is there a higher bid? At that moment, the auctioneer, Lu Renwen, struck while the iron was hot with a small hammer and seized the opportunity. He used his words to goad more people into bidding high prices. This is a rare divine beast hair. Even if you don't know how to use it, as long as you keep it by your side, it can bring you good luck. After all, This divine beast is called a mascot. Lu Renwen's words immediately caused the eyes of Wang Ling and the others in room 1 to light up. Lotus Sun, seniors, he said, mascot? Did I hear that right? Zhang Zi snickered. You didn't hear wrong, Miss Rong. I heard it too. This Lu Renwen has probably already guessed our identities, so he's probably one of us. Wang Ying nodded and agreed with Zhang Zi's suggestion. He's checking the code with us. After all, not many people know this code name, so it can only be one of us. It's just that we don't know who on earth is living in this Lu Renwen's body. Wang Zhen, let's wait a few more rounds. There's bound to be a time when he reveals his special characteristics. While they were discussing, Madame Shan Xiu, the leader of Immortal Mountain's sect who had been silent all this time, also spoke up at that moment and joined the bidding. Madame Shan Xiu, I bid 5 million Chaos Spirit Stones and an original copy of the 9-star Melody Array. The 9-star Melody Array was a divine grade array from ancient times, and was ranked above heaven, earth, black, and yellow. According to the standards of the modern cultivation world, this formation was at least at the 11th level. The most important thing was that Madame Shan Xiu had taken out the original copy of the array, which was the only original copy and had even more collectible value. This was a direct exchange of valuable items, which was also within the scope of the central auction house's permission. Madame Shan Xiu's participation made the people at the scene even more excited. Now that everyone knew that this divine beast's fur was a good thing, they didn't want to miss it. I bid 6 million Chaos Spirit Stones and 20 bottles of Missing You liquid. At that moment, a young man with slicked back hair spoke up. He was the owner of a famous sex toy store from ancient times. The Missing You liquid was the treasure of the store that he had personally developed. The advertising slogan was simple and crude, treasure, I'm getting an infusion. What liquid? Missing You Night. Although it was once called a greasy joke, the effect was indeed genuine. As long as it was sprayed on the body, it would automatically attract true love. Only true love would not dislike this greasy and be willing to approach it. This potion is very famous. It's the key to finding a Tao partner. It's expensive to manufacture. Of course, there are also people who are spurned during the effect period after applying it, but they usually have to find the reason from themselves. If you can't get a wife after applying it, it means that there's no true love in this world, Zhang Zi snickered. As more and more people participated in the bidding, the auction house became even more heated. In the end, no one mentioned the Chaos Spirit Stones anymore. They all used their treasures to exchange. I bid 2 divine-grade spiritual techniques and a divine-grade cultivation technique. I can use the complete ancient dragon remains to exchange. Hee, none of you can do it. I bid 100 kilograms of Kushuan's moral integrity. Chapter 1868. 100 kilograms of Ku Xian's moral integrity. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone in the audience went wild. Everyone knew that this thing was worthless to those who weren't interested in it. After all, Ku Xian's moral integrity had already been shattered a long time ago, falling to the ground one by one. No one paid attention to the previous bid of this person who also didn't have moral integrity. They continued to use their unique heavenly treasures to participate in the auction. I have a clear sky ruler. I've decided to use it to exchange. At that moment, a young man's voice came from VIP room 3. His voice wasn't very loud, but it was deafening to the ears. The crowd was in an uproar. This clear sky ruler was an immortal treasure of the Southern Region Imperial Palace. It contained the life force of the Southern Region Imperial Palace and was also a prize that the Southern Region Imperial Palace had provided 100 years ago. I remember that the year we had the clear sky ruler, the winner was an itinerant cultivator called Broken Sword. Who is this person? Broken Sword? But I feel like he's younger than Broken Sword. Could he be Broken Sword's son? Many people started to discuss the identity of this young man. Broken Sword doesn't have a son. You don't have to guess anymore. I know this guest. This young man is called Tang Moyuan, the descendant of the famous refiner Tang Root No. 9. So it's him, everyone understood. Tang Zhen's nickname was 9, and he was also a famous blacksmith. He was extremely famous since ancient times. Although they didn't know why this clear sky ruler fell into Tang Moyuan's hands, Tang Root No. 9 was a very righteous person. Since it was in his son's hands, he must have made some sort of deal with Broken Sword back then. However, no one expected to use the clear sky ruler to exchange for this divine beast's fur. The value of this clear sky ruler was at least 20 million chaos spirit stones. It had already crushed everyone else's bid. However, at this moment, King Tianquan made a bid again. No one knew if it was because of his superiors, but he wasn't willing to give up. I bid 30 million chaos spirit stones. I'll add another chaos spirit stone. The moment he spoke, the crowd fell into a dead silence. This was something the Great West Emperor had plundered from the Eastern region's imperial palace. He had wanted to participate in this auction, but he hadn't expected King Tianquan to take it out for an exchange. In fact, King Tianquan had his own considerations for this decision. He had come to the central auction house because of the notice letter that Zhang Zizi had stolen. If they waited for the Chaos Immortal Stone to be auctioned, it would take a long time, and there would be all sorts of unstable factors. But now, if he were to exchange it as the product of the transaction, once the transaction was completed, then the chaotic immortal stone would have nothing to do with him. Neither he nor the Great West Emperor would suffer any loss of face. After all, Zhang Zipei said in the notice letter that he would steal the mixed immortal stones during the auction. Now that he was not playing according to the rules, Zhang Zipei might lose his footing because of this. Of course, King Tianquan did not come up with this idea on his own. Instead, it was the opinion of the two snake girl attendants beside him. You've done well. When we return, I will take good care of you. King Tianquan was very satisfied with this suggestion. 30 million chaotic immortal stones and a mixed immortal stone that was also worth 30 million, this could already be called a sky-high price. Wang Ling was stupefied. He had never expected his hair to be so valuable. Thinking back to all the hair he had trimmed in the barbershop all those years ago, it was practically gold. Furthermore, it was even more valuable than gold. What should we do? He's just changing his tactic. If the transaction is completed and Senior Zhang steals the chaotic immortal stone, it will have nothing to do with him at all. That's easy. We just need to go easy on him during the transaction. At that moment, Zhang Zipei, who was playing the role of Li Ren, laughed sinisterly. Now, he completely remembered what had happened back then. Go easy? Lotus Sun was puzzled and looked a little doubtful. Just then, Zhang Zipei, who was playing the role of Li Ren, suddenly focused his gaze on an empty spot. You're there, right, Zhang Zipei? There was nothing there, and at first glance, Zhang Zipei, who was playing the role of Li Ren, seemed to be talking to the air. Don't be nervous, we have no intention of exposing you. Zhang Zipei, who was playing the role of Li Ren, snickered. No matter how you deceive other people, you can't fool me. After a while, an unfamiliar man's voice came from the private room. This voice belonged to the young Zhang Zipei. He had been hiding somewhere else, but because of King Tianquan's sudden change of tactics, he had no choice but to move to the private room Wang Ling was in. Because once the transaction was completed, the chaotic immortal stone would be sent directly to the room under the arrangement of the auction house. Who are you? Young Zhang Zipei hadn't expected to be exposed, and was very nervous for a moment. You don't need to know who I am. I just want to tell you that we won't be making a move later. You can directly attack them when they walk down the aisle with the chaotic immortal stone. Don't have any misgivings, Zhang Zipei, who was playing the role of Li Ren, said. Zhang Zi, who was playing the role of Li Ren, snickered. He had arranged everything clearly for his younger self. Why are you helping me? Young Zhang Zipei frowned in confusion. An enemy of an enemy. We are friends. King Tianquan is the representative of Great West Emperor, and we are his enemies. After a long silence, young Zhang Zipei didn't respond. He was very cautious as he pondered whether this was a trap or not. But at that moment, Zhang Zipei, who was playing the role of Li Ren, couldn't help taking a deep breath and saying, "You have to believe me, because I know your secret." Wang Ling, Lotus Sun and Wang Zhen were all stunned by this, and all of them looked like they were watching a show. So this was the segment where they had to reveal their dirty laundry? Wang Ling felt that he was going a little overboard in order to convince young Zhang Zipei to cooperate. "What do you know?" Young Zhang Zipei looked very nervous. "I know your fetish for women." Old Zhang Zipei said, "If you don't believe me, I can tell you directly." "Don't." "I believe you." Young Zhang Zipei broke out in a cold sweat. This had really hit his soft spot. If this person really knew something and said it, this would be a large-scale social death scene. After a few more minutes, King Tianquan finally bought Wang Ling's hair for the astronomical price of 30 million chaotic spirit stones and 1 chaotic immortal stone. But what no one expected was that while the central auction house was transporting the storage bag containing the 30 million chaotic spirit stones and the chaotic immortal stone, something unexpected happened in the end. In order to ensure the absolute safety of the transaction, the auction house had specially chosen 2 experts and Lu Renwen to personally deliver the items. However, when the items arrived at the door of Wang Ling's private room, when the items were delivered to Wang Ling's private room, the whole central auction house was suddenly filled with snow-white smoke. This smoke quickly spread throughout the entire auction room. Young Zhang Zipei was waiting for an opportunity to make a move, but what he didn't expect was that Lu Renwen's reaction was also very quick. He did his utmost to protect his auction item, and didn't give young Zhang Zipei the slightest chance to do so. He's still a little green. Old Zhang Zipei smiled slightly at that moment and just waved his sleeve. The chaotic immortal stone that Lu Renwen was guarding appeared in his palm like magic. Then, taking advantage of the chaos, he directly stuffed the chaotic immortal stone into young Zhang Zipei's hand. "Leave the rest to me, run." Chapter 1869. The chaos only lasted for a moment before it quickly returned to normal. The mixed immortal stone was stolen by the young Zhang Zi from the ancient times, and after he succeeded, he immediately retreated, not leaving a single cloud behind. In a trance, old Zhang Zizi suddenly recalled this legendary experience that spanned across the ages. At that time, he had indeed received the help of a senior. But old Zhang Zizi didn't expect that the senior who had helped him was actually himself. "Zhang Zizi. Don't let me catch you." King Tianquan slammed the armrest of his chair, breaking it. He was flustered and exasperated. He didn't expect that Zhang Zizi would be able to get away with his trick. This was a slap to his face. And slapping his face was actually slapping the great Western Emperor's face. What a shameless thief. With the immortal stone stolen, the transaction for the divine beast's fur fell into a stalemate. King Tianquan had lost face, but the central auction house couldn't shirk its responsibility. After all, the escorts for the transaction were all sent by the central auction house. On one side was the mysterious and extravagant guest in room 1. On the other side was the representative of the great Western Emperor, King Tianquan, who was sitting in room 9. The central auction house didn't dare to offend either side. Thus, after the manager, Qin Yanan, asked for instructions from the higher-ups, the manager's son, the auctioneer, Lu Renwen, stepped forward to mediate. "This time, our auction house made a huge mistake. Don't worry, King Tianquan. Since you've already bid for the divine beast's fur, it counts. As for the immortal stone, our auction house will use other treasures to make up for it. We will definitely satisfy you and the guest in room 1, Lu Renwen said respectfully. "I'm fine with it. I just want the divine beast's fur. As for what you do with it, it's none of my business." King Tianquan snorted. His immortal stone had been brazenly stolen by Zhang Zizi, which made him feel indignant. On the other side, after Lu Renwen comforted King Tianquan, he quickly went to room 1 with Qin Yanan. "Everyone, I'm very sorry. This is our auction house's mistake, which led to the accident during the transaction. I'm sorry for the shock. The two cupped their hands. Chen Yanan's face was shrouded in dark clouds, and the sadness she showed made people feel sorry for her. However, when she raised her head, she inadvertently saw the group of people in front of her smiling at her. She was astonished. He was even more curious about the background of the guests in room 1. He must have seen a lot of the world. Even if he wasn't a disciple of a famous sect, he was at least a member of the imperial family. He was too calm. Not only was he calm, but he was also looking at her with a smile. Just how big was his heart? This made Chen Yanan respect Wang Ling and the others even more, and she didn't dare slight them in the slightest. My apologies for startling all of you. We've already issued an Eternal Sea warrant for Zhang Zistiel's arrest in the entire universe. I will definitely avenge all of you. Chen Yanan said. As for the previous transaction, although there are 30 million Chaos Spirit Stones, I'm missing the Chaos Immortal Stones. I wonder if we can compensate you in other ways? King Tiankuan is determined to obtain that divine beast hair. That's easy. The East Great Emperor nodded and smiled. Inside his body, Wang Ying transmitted Wang Ling's instructions to him. For King Tiankuan, this was a priceless divine beast hair, but for Wang Ling, it was just his own hair. In his eyes, it wasn't worth much to begin with. As for the Chaos Immortal Stone, it was an object from the East Great Emperor's imperial palace to begin with. The East Great Emperor had collected this stone for a long time and was already tired of it. He wouldn't feel bad even if he lost it. On the contrary, he could now exchange it for something new to play with through this transaction. For the East Great Emperor, this was exactly what he wanted. That Chaos Immortal Stone is valued at around 30 million Chaos Spirit Stones. What do you want to exchange for it? Zhang Zistiel said, My lord has taken a fancy to that divine beast skull with a long name. That's easy, Lu Renwen said directly. I'll take responsibility for this divine beast skull and give it to my lord. As for the remaining 30 million, we'll calculate it separately. Now, we have two options. The first is for our bank to directly convert 30 million Chaos Spirit Stones into compensation. The second option is that in the following auction, if my lord takes a fancy to anything, he can choose anything as compensation. No matter what the final price is, our bank will bear it. The East Great Emperor waved his hand and directly made his choice without hesitation. Then let's go with the second option. That's good. Lu Renwen and Chen Yanan bowed and quickly retreated. For the East Great Emperor, Chaos Spirit Stones were just trivial money. Besides, Zhang Zistiel had stolen a lot of them previously, so they didn't lack these things at all. It would be too boring to ask for money directly. He knew that King Tiankuan also had something that he had to obtain in this auction, and with this promise from the Buyers Guild, he would be able to compete with King Tiankuan without any effort. Previously, King Tiankuan had tried to humiliate him by auctioning off the East Great Emperor's stone that he had stolen from the imperial palace. As the emperor of a territory, he naturally had to get back at him. Very quickly, order was restored at the scene. The storm quickly subsided, and the guests on both sides were very satisfied with the outcome. There was really nothing better than this. Whether it was Room 1 or King Tiankuan's Room 9, the central auction house couldn't afford to provoke them. Unless the president personally took charge, there was no way to suppress them. As the president's son, it was rare for Lu Renwen to manage such a grand auction under the backdrop of the four emperors gathering. To be honest, he was a little flustered. Although he had already inherited the memories of Lu Renwen, and could just follow his experience step by step, he was still worried that something might go wrong. Thus, he could only rely on his intuition. Fortunately, his luck had always been pretty good. Although there had been an accident just now, it had been handled very well. And most importantly, it was because of that accident that he had recognized who the guest in Room 1 was. He had deliberately left a loophole and let Zhang Zistiel steal the Chaos Spirit Stone. His goal had been to personally go upstairs and have direct contact with the guest in Room 1. Using his intuition as the only koi in the cultivation world, Qin Zong, who was now playing the role of Lu Renwen, had already made a basic judgment about Room 1. The people in Room 1 were all his people who had transmigrated from the modern world. And Li Ren had to be Zhang Zistil. It was just that Qin Zong had no idea who Wang Ling was playing. I can only take it one step at a time. He sighed in his heart. Then, he signaled with his eyes for Chen Yanan to bring out the next auction item. It was a sky-reaching praying mat. According to the data, it was something that Dao ancestor Wang had used. You're tuning into the Dreamy Love Stories YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.